Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Bargain Bin, a show about speedrunning games all under $20. I'm Midnight Vesper, your host, and if you're new here, here's how this works. For more current/digital games, we're going to be using digital stores like Steam, GOG, Itch.io, Ubisoft, etc. to look at the list/MSRP price. For retro games, we're going to be using a various assortment of price charting websites to look for the loose price of the game. We do not count any sales or discounts as they vary from time to purchase. Couple announcements real fast. If you have missed out on any of the GDQ Hotfix shows, check out our archive of past runs and shows over at youtube.com/GamesDoneQuick. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, hello YouTube. Hope you all are awesome. Feel free to join us on over at twitch.tv/GamesDoneQuick to check out our live shows starting most nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. And while you're there, Hotfix is funded in part thanks to your subscriptions and bits. Please consider subscribing to help support our future broadcast. And of course, our new channel, GDQ Sum of Best Segments, is a highlight channel with small highlight reels for all of our main events and our Hotfix shows. Use !highlights in Twitch to learn more information. And finally, Also Games Done Quick 2022 online will be January 9th through the 16th. Visit gamesdonequick.com for more information and detailed dates on the event. And for today, for the Bargain Bin, I thought it'd be a little bit different. For those who don't necessarily know, my birthday is the 13th of December, so it's coming up soon. Naturally, we have other shows that are happening on there. We're going to take that in. We have Awfully Silly, and that's never happened before. But I thought, why not be a good time to showcase something I really enjoyed as a kid and also an adult, Legos and Star Wars. So what's also really good, since we're kind of in the festive time, it's also a good showcase to have a little bit of fun, a little bit of lifting spirits, and Zach is ready to showcase Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga. Take it away, Zach.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach. I'm the world record holder for Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga in the any percent category. And I have alongside me two former world record holders and top runners, E Roadhouse and We Super. They're going to be commentating this run alongside. If you guys have anything you want to say before I get into it, go ahead.
Hello, I'm E Roadhouse.
And hello, I'm We Super.
All right, I guess I'll just get into it. So I'll give the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're starting.
Alright, so a big thing with LEGO speedrunning, and especially TCS, is 1P2C, or also known as one player two controllers. So basically, throughout this run, Zach is going to be using his player one on his controller, and he's going to be calling in player two on his keyboard to kind of help with some skips. Some skips require two players, and it also just helps with minimizing tasks. And
yeah, mostly just a movement thing. I mean, you're gonna see like pretty much most of the run we have both players called in, doing whatever. A lot of the time it's just, keeping the second player there, because dropping out, as some of you may be familiar with from the games as a kid, it does involve going into a menu, so yes, we try to minimize those.
He is going to be using one hand to control each player, and it requires a lot of being able to split your focus between two players, as you can see here, moving forward with both players at the same time, making sure that they stay close to each other, because the camera can't stretch too far in this game, and ensuring that he just makes it through the room as fast as possible.
right. And something big about the first level is that at the end of the first level, we actually can't skip through the status screen like you normally can on all the other levels. So it's actually faster to end the level with 0 studs, so that we can skip the stud status screen. If you pick up any studs, even just 10 studs, it loses about 7 seconds, I believe, as you have to watch the studs fill up into the bank and watch the true Jedi counter fill up.
Yes, and studs are these little coins on the ground, and you'll see that he just intentionally died with his first player, so all the studs drop out, because that's just what happens when you die. And he's going to die with the second player here. All of his studs drop out. He now has 0 on both players, and he enters the ship at the end here with 0 studs on both players, which, like he said, will allow us to skip a couple of these status screens at the end of the level.
Yeah. pretty solid negotiations.
Definitely one of the more difficult levels in the run, just because we reset there so often since it's the first level.
Yeah.
So it's always nice to see a clean one.
And normally we would save cancel here, but Zach's just gonna save just because of run security, just in case anything happens with the game state, like a crash or anything.
Yeah,
Usually it
obviously
doesn't
an
happen.
older game, so
Yeah, being a 2007 PC game, it can definitely crash here and
it
there.
can crash. not super common, but it does happen sometimes, and we're kind of figuring out how to avoid it, which is a work in progress, I guess you could say.
Right.
All right, coming into the second level here, we are going to really get to see the glitchy side of this game. And if you've seen a LEGO game before, I know we've had the DS games on, that basically every LEGO game has a lot of glitches, and this game is no exception. And right here, he's going to do a bit of a glitchy jump to get up this tree here, and by forcing the tree, he clips underneath the map, and he's now out of bounds. And this is the first of many out-of-bounds tricks we're going to get to see in this run. And out-of-bounds mechanics in this game are very generous. As long as you are underneath collision, you can literally just walk underneath the map. And he just walked underneath a cutscene trigger there, and that skip saves over 20 seconds. So that was very good execution. And coming into this next room here, we're going to get to see Jar Jar Binks, who is an example of a high jumping character. And he's going to do some tricky jumps here that you can just barely make to skip a little puzzle here. And this is something that you're going to see a lot in LEGO games, or this run today, is that there are a lot of jumps that you can just barely make that the developers clearly did not want you to make, but with a really, really well-timed jump, you're able to skip a lot of things, as you can see right there.
Definitely surprised that made it, but yeah, some of these are all about angles. And one important thing to note is that jump spacing is a big thing in this game. So obviously there's a certain point where you can no longer double jump when you're in the air. And in order to get the maximum distance on most of the jumps that you need to make, the precise ones, you want to jump as late as is physically possible, but before the window ends where you can double jump, which is, as we get later into the run, we'll start to see some jumps that have very, very small windows, talking like 1 or 2 frames. So yeah, it can be pretty difficult, but that's sort of something that when you play this game a lot, you sort of get down the timing for jump spacing with each character.
Yeah,
And those were just like rudimentary examples of well-spaced jumps as well. They'll get much harder, as Zach said.
Yeah, and if we're being specific about it, the time between the first and second jump is 0.6 seconds. So generally, you want to be within like the last like 1 or 2 or 3 frames in that window in order to make most of the really difficult jumps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some jumps in the game have 2 frame windows, I believe, 2 or 3 frame windows that we'll actually be demonstrating later in the run.
Yeah, so surprisingly, this run does have a lot of tricks that are actually very precise. Later in this episode, we'll see one of the more precise tricks, if not the most timing-based, precise trick in the game, as they'll probably talk about when we get to it. But the run sort of starts to get really interesting after this level. This level is pretty simple. It's mostly with 1 player. But,
Yeah.
there are a couple concepts that they'll be able to discuss here.
Yeah. So right away, when he gains control of his character here, he's just gonna run to that arch right there. And if he shoots one of the doors, he can actually just jump up through it and clip right through it, skipping the grapple on the left. And this is just another example of the wacky collision in this game. So you see right there, he just pops up. Not really sure why that works, but similar to...
Definitely weird collision, so...
Yeah, similar to climbing up the tree that we saw in the second level, where there's just random pixels everywhere. That's an example of us exploiting that.
Yeah, and this level in particular is a level that really doesn't have too many glitches, not really any super difficult tricks. So Zach right now is really focusing on just taking like a very effective and straight line to each place he's trying to go, because that can really add up in your time. Even though the LEGO games do have pretty simplistic movement, you can jump, you can attack. There's not any long jumps or anything like that. Even though the movement is really simple, we can still capitalize on taking really effective and straight lines to each destination to slowly build up some time save over someone who is maybe not as good at taking a straight line from place to place.
Right. And right here, we're going to see the first example of a camera pan skip in the game. So he's actually going to call in player 2 right before that camera pan. And right after the camera pan starts, if he just switches to a different character with his player 2, it'll actually skip the camera pan, and then he can just drop out player 2 and hit the end level trigger, saving a couple seconds as he doesn't have to sit there and wait for the camera pan to finish.
Yeah, camera pans are sort of like a mini cutscene. It's just, if you've ever played a Lego game, you've probably seen it. It's just when you do a task, like for example, it happens when you hit that button there, the camera just sort of shifts over to what's happening when you hit the button, and it doesn't let you move for quite a while, so that's the importance of skipping it. And now we get into Pod Race, a level that most people who know anything about Lego Star Wars are familiar with and either love or hate this level, but I can assure you it's going to be very different than the experience you had when you played it as a kid.
Yes.
And depending on, well, a lot of people know and a lot of people don't know, Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga is technically a remaster of 2 previous games, Lego Star Wars: The Video Game and Lego Star Wars 2: The Original Trilogy. It basically takes the 18 levels and 17 levels from those 2 games and puts them together and adds one more for a clean 36 levels. And one thing they did is they redid the pod race level. So if you played Lego Star Wars: The Video Game as a kid, you probably hate this level because in that game it is really, really difficult. In this game, it's not very difficult. And because of it not being very difficult, it allows us to bump into walls without worrying about dying. And being able to do that will allow us to do a pretty big skip coming up, and it's a pretty cool looking one. So be sure to look forward to that coming up very soon.
If you want to explain how it works, I guess this is a good time because we're kind of just going on through.
So basically, nearing the end of the first lap, he's actually going to ram himself into a rock and call in player 2. And it's basically going to force player 2 to call in out of bounds because he has nowhere else to call in. And the weird thing about out of bounds in pod race is that if you actually just hold neutral, you'll gain insane amounts of speed. So when he's out of bounds, he's just going to be zooming really fast. And he's going to hit the lap 2 trigger, which will trigger a cutscene, but he'll still be out of bounds when he hits that. And the laps in this level work similar to how they work in Mario Kart Wii, where you kind of have checkpoints. So what you'll see after he hits this cutscene, you'll see he goes really fast here, is he's gonna hit the lap checkpoint, which basically means that he'll be able to advance to lap 3 after he hits it. If he misses the checkpoint, he'll have to redo lap 2.
Here we go. As you can see, he is out of bounds and he is holding neutral on the stick, which causes him to build up lots of speed. Oh, that's not quite the result he was looking for, but...
Well, this is going to take a while. Actually, that's not too bad.
We should be good.
Yeah, so what happens is the pod racer decides to turn around because based on where you call in, it'll actually be facing the other way. And we get to watch him sail on through, skipping the second lap entirely, essentially.
Yeah, that was a less than ideal result, but still saved time.
Yeah, still got the trick, which is what you want.
Yeah, I mean, the trick does save, close to a minute, I believe, which is crazy to think about in a what seems to be an auto-scroller, racing level. But it's definitely one of the coolest tricks of the run because of that.
I saw people saying it in chat, but I think it's worth saying, now this is pod racing.
Yes,
it is. It really is.
And
actually, on lap 3, he's just going to do the out of bounds again, just to hit the end level trigger faster.
Because as you saw probably on the first lap, we gain that hyper speed as soon as we go out of bounds here, and that is what allows us to zoom right to the finish line here. And we don't need to hit any checkpoints, we're just going to go ahead and touch that finish line.
Yeah, taking advantage of this out of bounds speed boost again, just to do a quick little blast off to the finish line.
Yeah, definitely one of the most fun things in the run.
But what about the other individual that goes out of bounds with you? What's going through their mind the moment they go out of bounds?
He's the sacrifice.
Yeah, he's just there to hit the checkpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's one of the most complex tricks in the run. So if you didn't get it, that's fine. It's only the 4th level, so it doesn't make too much sense. But of course, We have some other complex tricks. The next level, though, I think is a lot more simplistic, a lot more about execution and small stuff, which is going to be a good testament to like how execution heavy this game actually can be, and also how broken it can be.
Yeah. Yeah, in this level, we're going to see our first example of a transition skip, which we'll use to skip an entire room and get out of bounds. That'll come up like in the middle of the level. But the beginning of the level is fairly simplistic. He's just gonna call in player 2 and just force R2 up a ramp just to reach the panel faster.
And I would say this point in the run is really we're going to get to see a good example of a more complicated 1P2C or one player 2 controller strat, because obviously we had the one in the first level, but that's mainly just kind of running forward with both players. In this next room here, he is going to be having one player on R2D2 and the other one is a Jedi, and you're going to see that he is going to be doing something called force pushing R2D2. You can use the force on droids, and the character kind of moves pretty fast when you use it on a droid, and it's going to use that to kind of boost R2 forwards.
A fun fact is actually if you are force pushing a droid, they actually move as fast as the fastest character in the game, which is the droideka, which you see right here. And that's the character we use for movement in the free play category. That's just how fast those droids go when you force push them. Yeah.
And I guess while he's going to this next room, someone just asked what the rules are for any percent. So any percent in this game is just defined as beating all 6 episodes. So there's 6 levels per episode, so a total of 36 levels. So right now we're in episode 1, and we're going to go a little bit out of order, and we'll get into that later. But he is going to be beating all 6 levels in all 36 episodes because as of now, there's really no way to skip any levels, so we're just going to be doing all of them.
Yeah. And right here
You
we'll
guys want to
see,
talk about, yeah, drop-in warps?
yeah, another example of a drop and warp. So he's going to call in player 2 there, and R2 is just right there. We saw an example of that in negotiations, but we didn't really mention it. But basically when you drop out and you either camera pan or just run away from your team of members, if you call in your second player, sometimes they'll actually just warp to you, which makes it really nice, because in that case, R2 is really slow. So if you just leave him dropped in, you have to wait for him to catch up. Whereas if you drop him out and then drop him back in again, he'll be much closer to you.
This is a very difficult 2-player section, getting both of his players onto the elevator and then jumping across the bridge here. That elevator is actually meant for R2D2 to get up to this section, but he's just going to use it with the Jedis. And right here, he is going to be taking advantage of the fact that this box gets lifted up when being forced to get a Jedi up to that button early. Normally you need to do this whole puzzle, but he's just able to get up there like that. And right now, here's the transition skip that we're talking about. So right there is a door that will take you back to the previous room, but by killing a player while they're up against the door, when they respawn, if you push them correctly, you can push them out of bounds. And now he's out of bounds once more, and he can just walk out of bounds to the next room. And he did fall there, unfortunately. But hopefully
Not
this
a big
time,
loss though, yeah.
that movement around the plant is kind of weird, because the out of bounds collision only exists underneath a floor. So if you're not underneath the floor, you will just fall.
It's definitely the probably the most convoluted out of bounds in the entire game. Very weird movement, but you know, it's not too difficult. It's definitely not one of the most difficult strats, but it's definitely all about the like knowing where to go, and movement is pretty important in this game, which I think is one of the biggest factors that makes it so fun to play.
Yeah, and right here he's going to do another example of camera pan skips or swappy strats. So basically there's 4 camera pans right here, and if he switches when every single one plays, he can actually just skip all of them and get a couple shots off on the droids during the camera pans, whereas opposed to him just waiting at the door to the hangar while the camera pans are playing and not getting any shots off. So those save about 7 seconds.
And it's difficult just because you have to do it at the same time as, like, you do it with your second player, which I think is pretty difficult to do.
That whole time he was doing the jump shots to rescue everyone, he just had player 2 as R2 just moving to the right side because he's eventually going to need him over there, so may as well get the multitasking. And
Right.
I guess we'll bring this up again. just because we haven't mentioned it since the start of the run. But in order to control 2 players, Zach has one hand on his controller and his other hand on his keyboard. So he's using one hand for each player.
Yeah, and he just
I
sets
guess
his
I can-
controller down on his desk.
I'll quickly show the way that I'm holding my controller. Everyone has different grips, but essentially you just put your hand, on it, spreading your fingers across the whole controller, and then I tend to use my index finger for the control stick, and then my pinky for the buttons, and it allows me to control pretty much everything I need on the controller at once. And then keyboard, a little more intuitive, just because you can have access to all those keys just by touching that keyboard. But there are other methods of 1P2C. Double keyboard is one, double controller. So it definitely varies from player to player.
How hard was that to learn?
Not easy.
It definitely
so,
takes a lot of practice. Yeah.
It takes a ton of practice, and I think that's what's so rewarding about it. Also, if you guys want to talk about lamp jump, that's definitely one of the more unique skips.
Yeah, that was a pretty, it kind of just went right by, but he jumped on some glitchy collision to get on top of the lamp on the side there to just completely skip the gap of the first Darth Maul boss fight and just run right past Maul as if nothing happened. And Darth Maul is just kind of left in the dust there.
Yeah, speaking of glitchy collision, obviously, a little more there, but that one's a lot more intuitive. You can just jump off of that glitchy collision to climb the wall, and you're jumping around little tiny ledges that are put in the wall for some reason. Not really sure why. The developers definitely made some questionable decisions when making this game, and it makes for a pretty awesome speedrun.
Yeah. Yeah, so this room, his objective is just to kill the commander droids so he doesn't get any more droid spawns. So he's just gonna send player 2 to kill this commander droid, and then he can just drop him out. And this is just a good example of routing 1P2C and why it saves so much time, because instead of just going there with player 1 and then running all the way back, he can actually remove a ton of movement with player 1 just by sitting at the very end.
So
This is probably a good place. Oh, go ahead.
does the lightsaber color change have anything to do in terms of special abilities? Because I know, like, with their Qui-Gon has a purple lightsaber, and I know later on he switched back to the traditional green.
Yeah, I can go into that. So the little blue ball right there that he picked up is called a power-up, and they're just kind of scattered around the levels. If you destroy some objects, maybe a power-up will come bouncing out, and power-ups are extremely overpowered. They basically give you almost every extra in the game, which are sort of like bonus abilities that we'll get a bit more into later. But the reason the lightsaber turns purple, I believe, is because of one called super lightsabers, which makes the lightsabers do double damage, and you get a bunch of other perks like invincibility and a bunch of, like, just a ton of stuff.
Let's go.
So right there, you can perform cycle skips, which is a quadruple frame perfect skip that basically skips Maul jumping across this circular area. Zach missed one of them, but he got the other one. They're kind of in sets of 2. Basically, the inputs are jump at the same time and slash at the same time with both players.
Yeah, as long as you're doing
very hard to pull off.
damage to Darth Maul in the same frame, we'll skip the cycle.
Yeah, and the difficult part of it is you have to jump with both players on the same frame and slash with both players on the same frame. And the reason that's so hard, especially with the way I do it, is because obviously one of my players is on a controller, one of my players is on a keyboard, and you would be surprised how difficult it is to press a spacebar and an A button on an Xbox controller on the same frame. But so yeah, that is generally considered one of probably the 5 most difficult skips in the run. It's somewhere up there. It's definitely very, very hard to do.
Yeah. But
Luckily,
that completes
it's
episode
not
1.
a huge time save, so if you miss it, it's only a couple seconds.
Yeah.
Still feels great to get, though. Yeah, episode 1 complete. Definitely an interesting episode. It definitely has a variety of stuff in it. You have the pod race out of bounds, which no one expects. And then you have those quadruple frame perfect cycle skips at the end of Maul, and lots of cool 1P2C, some jumps in Invasion. But then we get into episode 2, which is a lot more diverse, I would say, in terms of levels. You have a lot of levels that are more about intuition like Jedi Battle, and then you have very execution heavy levels like Camino and Bounty Hunter Pursuit. And we'll get right into Bounty Hunter Pursuit as soon as I walk into the episode 2 room.
And I guess while we were explaining that, this game definitely has some funky cutscenes where one of the most iconic parts about the cutscenes is that the characters don't actually speak. They just kind of make these like grunting noises basically, and I know a lot of people think it gives them like a lot of personality and makes the cutscenes kind of iconic. I know a lot of people will remember them from their childhood. So even though we have to watch all these cutscenes, some of them can be kind of comedic and kind of nostalgic.
Yeah, my favorite one is the one at the end of Cloud City Trap. I'll mention it when we get there, and you'll see why. It's definitely a good one. But the cutscenes, you know, we've seen them probably thousands of times at this point, and so we're used to them, but everyone's favorite is usually the one in Carcoon, where Luke Skywalker's jumping on the edge of the skiff like a diving board. That's a classic one right there.
That's my least favorite one.
Yeah, I hate that one. Maybe that's just because Carcoon is one of the most difficult levels in the game.
Yeah.
And it's almost taunting you. But yeah, these cutscenes definitely add a lot of personality to the game. It's also nice to be able to hear some of the Star Wars music, because everyone knows it's definitely one of the greatest movie soundtracks of all time.
Yeah.
Right here, you might be wondering, like, why is he doing this section with 2 players when he could just be doing it with 1? And that's one of those what we call a micro optimization. The only reason he's playing with 2 players there is just to avoid dropping out 1 time, because dropping out takes about 0.7 seconds. So he's just able to keep both players in for this opening, rather than just running through with 1 player and losing that 0.7 to dropping out. And either way, he does have to bring his second player back in here in order to kind of overlap shooting torpedoes at these towers here to escape this little electrical section.
And we could definitely mention the lights that I just hit, which, you know, we'll see again here in this next, we call them the light rooms, just because they pretty much determine the entire room. Those lights have absolutely terrible collision. It does not match with the visuals at all. If you think of the manta ray in SM64, it's about that bad. And so, you know, when we're running over those lights, you have to be very careful to hit the correct part of it, especially when you're controlling 2 players at once, especially when they're like in a ship that's, you know, very weird to control. It can definitely get awkward. And that's what makes this level such a difficult like level on the execution end.
Yeah, and this is really where your brain starts to bleed with the 1P2C, because there is so much you have to pay attention to here, because if your ships just get a little bit off sync with where you want them to be, you can get completely flustered and just be completely out of control and lose a lot of time. So it's really important to keep you almost kind of switch your vision back and forth between each player really quickly in order to keep an eye on what's going on. And having a little bit of trouble with the torpedo targeting here. These little pink balls are called torpedoes, and their targeting abilities are not very good. Yeah, they have very poor targeting.
Yeah, and especially, hopefully we don't see it later, but we might see it later. Torpedo blanks.
Ready for a really short boss fight? This is a really short boss fight. This is really exciting. All right, that's the whole fight.
That's the whole fight. You just spam as hard as you can, and if you can spam fast enough, there is no fight.
Oh, you don't even need to spam with 2 players. You can just hold the
with
button.
2 players, you can just hold the button down, but obviously we're trying to be optimal, see if we can hit it in like 1 frame, so.
But yeah, the torpedo targeting in this game is pretty awful. Sometimes you can shoot dead on a target and it will just blank and you'll have to shoot again. And in cases where we don't have infinite torpedoes, we have to go back and grab another torpedo. So it can be really frustrating.
Right, and that's actually why, if you saw in the top right, when I didn't hit that tower correctly, that literally just happened because it decided to target a tower on the left for essentially no reason. And then after that, I had to go all the way around because it still wasn't targeting, so it can be very finicky.
Yeah. Right here, he's going to do a trick called R4 fly, which essentially is a very precise fly across this gap with R4, where he can skip the entire puzzle. Nice, first try.
Yeah, it's actually, it'll skip, it's like a sequence break, I guess you could call it. Skips a little mini cutscene and then a couple things to do with
Yeah.
both players.
Yeah, it skips extending a bridge.
But the reason it's so weird is because, as you can see, more force pushes here. The reason it's so weird is because of the fact that you have to fly around a kill plane. Or I guess not a kill plane, we like to call it a no-fly zone. They definitely have some planes in this game that allow you, like you can't fly with R4, with R2, with anyone who has a jetpack or a flight ability. But what we can do is we can cleverly fly around that zone and just have enough distance on R4 to make it to the other side, because astromechs have a limited flight distance, sort of like a gas mechanic, where they can only fly so far, and that is why that trick is so precise.
It's kind of funny because it's clear that the developers put that no-fly zone there so you couldn't fly across, but if you
Right.
just barely fly around it, you can still get over anyways.
Yeah, we like to ignore what the developers want when we do
Here,
this run.
as you can see, he was supposed to go in that door to his right here, but he's just going to continue running down this hall as he's going to do another one of these drop-in warps. By running in this corner, he can trick R4. Oh, let's try it one more time. He can trick R4 into thinking he is in the next room of the level, and by calling him in, he's in the next room of the level. And he skips, once again, a pretty long sequence where you have to fight some little robot dudes and watch a cutscene.
Yeah, a lot of the skips and time saves in this run are due to the fact that we can skip cutscenes with certain out-of-bounds movement and drop-in warps like you just saw.
Yeah, the crazy thing about that drop-in warp is that you could do it. It's very easy. You just
Yeah.
stand in the corner and then wait a little bit, and you just call them in, and it just works. It actually has to do with the pathfinding of player 2. So obviously when I'm not controlling player 2, the computer decides to control it. And
Yeah.
the computer is trying to get to me. And by standing there, it thinks I'm actually in the next room. So when I call it in, it's like, oh, here I am in the next room. And I'm like, well, okay, I can use that.
And you'll actually notice right here on player 2's heart counter, it looks like they have 0 hearts. And what we call this is ghost hearts. And it's basically invincibility. When a player dies, right when another player enters a transition, their heart count will be at 0 and it'll actually just stay at 0, granting them invincibility. And this is a pretty difficult skip right here, just because of the way the out of bounds collision kind of works. Basically, there we go.
Maybe? Gotta skip the cutscene
Nice.
too. Alright, there you go.
Nice. Yeah, so what he's doing there is he's forcing that object just barely enough to where it's not staying in place, and he'll set his respawn point on the ground, so when he dies to the robots, he'll actually respawn inside the collision, pushing him out of bounds. But that trick is a little finicky, just because of the way the objects work. But good second try, for sure.
It's definitely one of the harder tricks to back up.
Yeah.
This end fight here is one of the first examples of a quite boring boss fight. You basically just are just dealing hearts. It's very, very scripted. There's really not much you can do to speed it up or anything. So I suppose now is like a good time for the first time to kind of talk about the community. We do have a speedrunning Discord. Oh, hit the last slash. There we go. We do have a
He's a little
speedrunning
tricky.
Discord where like all the glitches you've seen so far, a lot of them are found and discussed within that Discord, which you can find on the speedrun.com page for this game. So if you're interested in either speedrunning the game so far or just following along, seeing what the community finds, all that will be posted in our community Discord.
Right. Tons of
Yeah.
tutorials and resources in there as well.
Yeah, we did make at the beginning of this year, was it? Around
Yeah.
the beginning of this year, I think. We did make a full any% tutorial. Obviously missing a couple things because it was a whole year ago now. But we also have a separate playlist on speedrun.com for the newer stuff, tutorials for that. So we like to keep everything updated. We have tutorials for pretty much every single strat. We've got a strat documents timing sheet that has like 500 different timings the community put together. on every single strat that's in the game, and 1P2C and time saves, lines, stuff like that. And we have tons of resources, so I definitely recommend if you're interested in getting into the game. Not only is it easy to get into, it's definitely a ton of fun, and it's definitely a very welcoming community. We love new runners. That is our favorite thing. And so, yeah, definitely check out the Discord. Definitely check out the speedrun.com page. The guides section is where we pretty much have all our resources.
And this is a pretty long cutscene, so I guess like another thing to talk about in terms of new runners to the game is, and I've seen a couple people talking about this, but obviously the 1P2C or controlling 2 players at once can be quite an intimidating thing to learn. And obviously people were asking, is there like a 1-player category? And there isn't. 1P2C is treated as more of a strategy rather than a play style. And it's one of those things where the game, basically in everyone's opinion, is more fun to run once you learn all the 2-player strats. Generally, 1 player gets kind of stale and kind of boring very quickly.
Especially since some skips require 2 players, and the alternative to not doing those skips is very long and frustrating.
And we'll mention it when we get there, but there is a 4-minute time save that requires both players. And so that's sort of kind of why we just focus on 1P2C. Obviously, you can run with 1 player. It's been done before, and you can definitely get an okay time with it, but we definitely recommend getting into 1P2C because it's really what sets LEGO games apart from other games, and I think that's why they're so fun and enticing to play. There's so many different techniques, and there's always room for improvement because of how difficult that execution is, but it's not as hard as it looks to learn. It just takes a lot of practice.
Yeah, and I think any runner will say that it's probably their favorite thing about LEGO speedrunning.
Right. Obviously there's cool tricks and movement and stuff, but when it all comes down to it, the 1P2C is the unique aspect of LEGO games, and especially in this game, the 1P2C is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Right here, you can just fly over this barrel and just use the panel and enter the next room. You don't have to do any of the objectives.
And that's actually like a huge sequence break. It
Yeah,
didn't look
it
like
is.
much, but he actually skipped like a bunch of stuff there just by being able to use that panel through the bombs, which the bombs were clearly placed there to prevent you from doing that, but you can still use the panel through the bombs anyways, so there we go.
Yeah.
I did see this in chat, and it was something that I was interested in, because I know this game is available on multiple platforms, not just PC. Is there a noticeable difference between the different versions in terms of speedrunning?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, so on PC, there's 2 places you can buy it. It's on Steam and GOG, and those 2 are the same. However, the game is also on console. It's like on Wii, PlayStation, and Xbox. And in those cases, there are quite a bit of technical differences. The level layout is the same, but there's a lot of like small nuances that are significant enough for the speedrun, where our leaderboard has each platform separated. So we have PC, Wii, Xbox, and PlayStation, and then we have mobile as well, which is kind of its own thing because you can only play with 1 player and you can skip cutscenes.
Right, and if you've ever seen someone skip a cutscene in this game, you're either watching the DS version or the mobile version. I'm sure someone will have seen that before.
And then
But
the
those are the
DS
platforms
version
that
just
allow it.
has its completely own leaderboard because that is like a completely different game.
Right. It's not the same game at all, but
Yeah.
yep. And I think an important thing to remember is that consoles like PlayStation and Xbox, you can only use 2 controllers. You cannot control with a keyboard, which is
Unless you want like a
usually-
2-second input delay.
That's true, right? You could technically do it, but ideally you're going to be using 2 controllers, which is totally doable. Some people do run with 2 controllers, but it's a lot harder because controlling a joystick with this finger, your pinky, is it's definitely very difficult. And so some people like it. Most people prefer to use keyboard as one or both of their input devices, and that's one of the reasons PC is more popular. And then of course it is just the fastest platform, and that's mainly why. Most accessible too, I guess you could say.
Yeah. But coming up onto this level, this is Jedi Battle, and it's the first major RNG level in the run of a few. And it's basically just RNG because we don't, especially on these pillars right here, we don't really know when some of the droids are going to shoot or if they're going to hit us. So sometimes we'll take unintentional deaths that lose a couple every death loses 2 seconds.
And a lot of it has to do with aggro. Like the droids tend to just aggro at random times. There's not like a standardization for when they aggro. Sometimes it'll be 2 seconds before they shoot you. Sometimes they will literally shoot you the second you come to their vision. And because of that, it requires you to react very, very quickly to the situation, basically, and being able to respond to what's going on very quickly is something that separates a good runner from an okay runner. And that was something very weird. I don't know why all the droids were so far down there.
No idea. It's something new at this level every time.
I was in the middle of explaining and I got really confused.
This
why all
level
those
is
droids
something
were so
new
far
every
down.
time. But this is the big RNG part, because there's actually not really a pattern to the droid spawns here. So we kind of just go on a wild manhunt for all the droids. And there is some kind of method to the madness with kind of the route that Zach is taking. You'll see once he gets to this pillar, if he doesn't really see anything, might turn around. But runners have different routes that they take as well. So yeah, it can be very frustrating at first.
As you can see, I have no idea where they are. And yeah, that's literally just a hide and seek section, and then now we get another one.
It's also, I also really enjoy the fact that like all the Jedi that are in here just look super confused as to what's going on.
Oh, and I absolutely
Just like
love
me.
it when they deflect our bullets so we can't kill the,
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
If there's a Jedi in front of the droids, you're not killing that droid.
yeah.
And now this is an example of where I'm probably just going to change my routing a little bit and keep going all the way around this direction. Yeah, and as you can see, I had a feeling this guy would be over here. It's just sort of adaptation to your circumstances. You see situations a lot when you're playing this game, and you just sort of get a feel for what's common. And when you get all 5 there at the beginning, it's pretty likely that the 6th guy is going to be on the
Time for
on the far end.
Time for another very boring boss fight. You just have to shoot him. Okay.
deflected shot into Jango Fett caused him to get iframes. Just another fun example of RNG in this level.
Yeah. The reason Zach is waiting between each shot here is because if he shoots him early, it won't do damage, and Jango will become invincible for a couple seconds, which we call iframes. So it's really, really important not to shoot early, because that's like a 3 or 4 second time loss.
You're right. And maybe the worst part about that fight is that if you hit a Jedi, or even if a droid hits a Jedi, they can randomly deflect the shot into Jango, giving him iframes, even if you weren't the one who did it. So once that level is over, you're usually pretty relieved, because it's maybe the most RNG heavy level in the entire run. And it's right here in the second episode.
Yeah, this is definitely a breather to finish this level. But then you get to go right into Gunship Cavalry, which is very infamous because these bombs are very frustrating. But you'll see real quick that we can actually just skip using all these bombs in this first room. This is the only one we have to use.
So I just did a little flip around the barrier.
Right around the barrier.
The second one you'll see is a little different.
And we should mention that little red brick on the ground you just picked up there. There are collectibles in these levels, as you may have noticed, and one of the things that you can grab are called red bricks, which give you those extra power-ups we were talking about earlier. And that one is exploding blaster bolts, and exploding blaster bolts does exactly what you would think. It makes blaster bolt characters have exploding bolts, and you might ask yourself, like, how is that very useful? But it's actually the most useful red brick in the entire game, as it allows you to completely just break through certain sections of the game in ways you weren't supposed to. And we're gonna buy that red brick from the shop and turn it on going into the next episode.
Yeah, and you'll notice he has ghost hearts here as well, because he died with player 2 right as he hit the transition to this room or he died with player 1 right as he hit the transition to this room with player 2, which gives him an invincibility in this room, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's nice, especially in this room, because as you can see, there were so many droids shooting at me, and if I die while I'm holding that bomb, it's gone. I cannot control it anymore. So that level is hard.
I also just want to randomly point out, I know that that area was supposed to kind of like be a concept of what the Death Star eventually becomes. But just seeing it on the ground for the first time, just watching it now, I'm like, that looks like the Technodrome from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle series.
Maybe
Yes, it
that's what
does.
it was.
Yeah, parallel universes.
There we go.
All right, it's your turn to talk about this skip,
yes.
Justin. Let's hear it.
All right, this is Dooku's skip, and it skips the first section where you interact with Count Dooku. You can clip underneath the floor with this barrel, and he is now going to run up to this door, get player 2 running up against the door, and call him in. And since player 2 is up against the door to the next room, the trigger that normally causes the interaction with Dooku to start does not play. And if you fail that skip, it means you were too far away from the door, and Dooku will send out a wave of Geonosians and laugh at you. And it's become
We like to call that a Dooku Christmas.
yeah, it's kind of a meme in the community when you fail Dooku skip. It's just kind of Dooku just kind of pops up on your screen and sends out a wave of Geonosians while just staring
Yeah.
at you.
They all roll up on you, and you're like,
40
oh.
seconds. They use
Yeah, there
40
goes 40 seconds.
if you missed that.
Yeah, so that one's a scary skip, especially because it marks pretty much getting out of the early game. You know, we're done with the 12th level if you hit that skip, just because the rest of the level isn't too difficult. And if you miss it, your run might be dead. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it is worth mentioning that the prequel episodes in this game are much shorter than the original trilogy episodes, which is why it is kind of relieving getting out of the early game, just because there's so much stuff that can happen in the early game that is very minor, that actually means a lot in terms of time loss. And you'll see after this episode, we're actually not going to go into episode 3. We're going to go into episode 4, and that'll be explained in a little bit.
Back to the rules of the category. It doesn't matter what order we go in. We just need to beat the 6 episodes. And
Yes.
going to episode 4 rather than any of the other episodes is going to prove to be the best option, and it once again will relate to picking up the red bricks, because there is a red brick in episode 4 that we will be picking up as well.
right. And obviously the episode order will start to get a little jumbled because we do not go to 5 after 4 either. But we'll talk about that when it happens. And so the important thing about the episode order is that pretty much every single time we do an episode out of order, there's 2 reasons. It's either that we want a red brick, because, you know, the earlier you get the red brick, the earlier you can use the red brick. And so, for example, we want to get the fast force red brick as soon as possible because, you guessed it, it's faster. And, but for example, you know, we end on episode 5, not 6, and that's actually in part because of the end cutscene. Because the timing ends in this category when you finish the level. You do not have to watch that very last cutscene outright. Saves. Menu glitch. That's a fun one.
So right there, he did
Shop
make
glitch,
a
I
quick
guess.
pit stop to the Cantina bar to buy the exploding blaster bolts red brick.
Yeah, we'll actually
And
see that used in this level.
And as you can see, that's kind of the reason why these red bricks are so useful, is the amount of time it takes to grab them is very short. The Cantina bar is just kind of sitting really close to all the episodes. You just kind of pop in there real quick, buy the red brick you need, and head straight to the next episode.
Yeah. And I guess as we get into episode 4, we can talk a little bit about what exploding blaster bolts is actually going to do here. And so what you'll kind of see that in, I guess, Spaceport, which is the 3rd level in episode 4. That's probably the most important one for exploding blaster bolts. But even in this level, you'll see that it'll allow for stuff like clearing out enemies a lot quicker, and enemies are, you know, primarily RNG in this game, so the sooner you can get rid of them, the better. And then you have stuff like bombs that take multiple shots to explode. Well, you can completely skip that by shooting it with 1 explosion. And then, you know, when we get into levels like Death Star Escape, you'll kind of see that exploding blaster bolts can be a double-edged sword, because, of course, if it's going to make an explosion, you know, we can run right into that explosion and get hit by it.
I'm pretty sure this is a pretty famous level. If you've played either this game or Lego Star Wars 2, this is probably a level you've seen before. And this level, in terms of the speedrun, is one of the, I guess, like the less glitchy levels. It focuses mainly on just having good 1P2C execution, and just getting through the level as fast as possible. And you'll see that we have not turned on exploding blaster bolts quite yet. We're going to kind of overlap some menuing here. So right here you can see the power up makes you build faster, so he's trying to divide that building equally among the two players.
And we can obviously skip that bridge going all the way out just by jumping over the end of it. As I turn on EBB here, now you will see, boom, they're all gone. And this bomb as well explodes instantly, which
That
is
bomb
definitely nice.
usually takes 4 or 5 shots to blow up with just normal blaster bolts, but we can just shoot it once with EBB.
Now, it's been a while since I've seen episode 4, I'll admit, but I don't remember that blaster being in episode 4, at least in this, this beginning here.
I don't think it was, Lego games, they don't necessarily adhere to the movies perfectly. That's a bit of the charm, So here I'm actually going to kill both players with exploding blaster bolts on purpose so that I have invincibility frames like we talked about over there in Jedi Battle. And that's going to allow me to shoot those stormtroopers without killing myself because, I'm invincible for a short period of time, so I'm able to kill those guys without having to worry about the explosion killing me. But obviously it's a short period of time.
That does bring up an interesting, I guess, skill ceiling that you need to learn with exploding blaster bolts, and that's blaster bolt management. It's very easy to accidentally blow yourself up if you shoot something too close to you. So knowing the exact distance you can be away from something without the explosion killing you is a really important skill to learn, and it's a pretty tough thing to pick up. It takes a lot of practice to become confident with using exploding blaster bolts without constantly blowing yourself up. And if you watch older runs of a lot of the runners here, for example, you'll see that we used to blow ourselves up a lot more with the blaster bolts than we do now.
Yeah, right there we kind of just glossed over it, but what he did there was a trick called super crane. Normally you'd have to kill the guys across the platform to free rebel friends so he can lower another platform for you. But we can actually just grab C-3PO with the crane as he walks off the edge and just bring him all the way over. And you'll also notice that he does have ghost hearts on player 1 here as well, which gives him invincibility, which is really nice for these small hallways and secret lanes.
So this is some cool character management we do, as you saw. It's like bottlenecking, essentially. Routing out movement by calling in player 2 as rebel friend, so I'm able to drop out the player on the lever and then move over into the other compartment as quickly as possible because rebel friend's already on the outside. And so stuff like that, those micro optimizations are definitely one of the coolest parts about this game, because as surprising as it may sound like this sentence is pretty crazy, but Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga is a very optimized game. It's been pushed for years now, and we definitely have tons and tons of runners pushing it even further. This current record, I think, is now the longest standing world record, but prior to this, I think we did not have a record that stood for more than
4 months.
4 months, for years. So
I'm not sure if it's something to say proudly or not, but all three of us here have easily put over 2,500 hours into
I would go
running
like
and optimizing.
It's definitely 4,000.
Maybe approaching 3,000, 4,000 hour range.
Yeah.
So
It's a lot.
we have put a ton of time into really optimizing every single room, every single line to the best it can be, which goes back to that timing sheet we were talking about. We've timed over 500 different strats just to see if one strat is just, a couple tenths of a second faster than another one.
All right, I think this is a good time to start explaining Fast Force Out of Bounds because it's a little complex, and it is at the beginning of the level here. So basically, when I start playing, you guys can kind of explain what's happening, but I'm going to be doing an out of bounds by jumping over a transition, and Justin, you can kind of explain how that works. And then I'm going to be grabbing the Fast Force red brick, and then I'm going to be warping back to where I was before, and then doing some weird things with the transition to get into the next room.
Yes, and I will go more into that when we get there very soon.
This level is definitely one of the most punishing and difficult levels in the run, as there's really hard skips in every single room.
Yeah, and this is one of the levels where you just skip literally everything. Like,
Yeah.
there is a way to skip every single puzzle, almost.
Except for the sandcrawler.
Yeah. All right, so let's give a quick little crash course on respawn mechanics. So when you die in this game, it'll respawn you on the last solid ground you've been standing on, and out of bounds collision is not considered solid ground. So right here, like he was saying, he is going to jump on this satellite to jump over the door that normally takes you to the next room to get out of bounds. And he is now walking on out of bounds collision. And he is going to, the reason he's doing this is because the red brick is enclosed in this little wooden case that you need to do a puzzle to open. But by coming in from out of bounds, you can just kind of poke your lightsaber in and grab the brick. And since the last solid ground he stood on was way over there, by dropping off and dying, he will respawn right next to the door.
All right.
Yeah.
And now we have access to Fast Force, which we'll buy after this episode.
Yeah, and here he's gonna do a skip to get into the sandcrawler early without going up to the top and using the puzzle. So he's gonna force these two boxes, and if you can time this correctly, it is a very difficult jump.
Yeah, this is very, very precise.
Nice.
There we go.
But yeah, that's definitely one of the hardest tricks in the run. It's just very precise. You know, there's not really I don't know if we have a frame window for it, but it is actually pretty small. Mainly because the spacing of your jump, you really have to get a jump right off the edge of that box, and then get a double jump that will like give you the height into the sandcrawler, but you can't do it too early, otherwise you'll hit your head, as you saw at the beginning.
Yeah.
This is the one part of the level we were talking about that you can't really skip, but we can still go fast.
Oh my god,
This
yeah.
is not so fast. There we go.
But buttons are not very fun in this game, I gotta be honest.
Especially these buttons, because these buttons are raised. So if you accidentally miss one just because your player falls off it's really, you can get really flustered on them.
And that's another great crowd control example with exploding blaster bolts. Normally the job was you have to shoot 2 times there just to kill each one, but with exploding blaster bolts, not only does it only take 1 shot to kill them, but sometimes you can get a 2-in-1, or maybe even a 3-in-1 if they're really grouped up.
Yeah.
And you do
Alright,
have to
welcome
kill
to
them
the-
because they like to zap your droids.
Welcome to the most broken room in the first half of the entire run.
We skip every single panel here.
So that's like a minute. Well, maybe not a minute, but you know, quite a bit of time. And then there's a little bridge over there. Let's see if I can get this. Nice.
Nice.
So skip that as well. And then this other dehydrator.
Oh, going for the middle strat. Oh,
Middle strat.
that's like the
the most
ultimate
difficult one.
like gamer legend strat that he's going for right now.
We're gonna get it though.
What is to save like 1 second over the easy
1
strat
second, yeah,
going,
I think something
going
like that.
around the outside. So
Don't
This
worry.
is the swag strat though.
Yeah, the swag strat for sure. Work in progress. And you can see why this isn't a very common strat. It's extremely punishing if you die. It sends you right back here instead of on top of the dehydrator. The thing about this level is that there's generally a lot of respawn points. Okay, well I guess we're just gonna dip out on the strat. But anyway, I'll show the other strat, which is a little bit easier. You can
the
literally
only
just-
reason that saves time is because you're taking like a direct line rather than
Yeah.
going around the outside of the pool here. That's literally all he was trying to skip.
But the cool thing about the going around the outside of the pool is that for whatever reason the edge of the quicksand just has collision. However, it's very weird. That collision, like, you can't have too much velocity on it, otherwise you'll just die. And I don't really know why, but
Yeah, and
Right
here he's
here,
gonna
we're
do a speeder clip.
Yep.
Basically clipping player 2 to Obi-Wan's hut without having to use the buttons. Saves a good amount of time. And we're gonna see that right at the beginning of the next level as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's 2 points speeder clipping is used in the run, and it's right at the end of this level and right at the start of the next level. And that is
right.
a common trait that you'll find in the complete Saga, where there's all sorts of like crazy glitches you can do, but they normally only have like 1 or 2 applications in the entire game. And speeder clipping is one of those things where there's only 2 uses in any percent.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's a lot harder in the next level, and so that one was, you know, not too bad. It's just all about positioning yourself correctly. This next one is, let's just say, one of the most complicated skips in the entire game, and I can't really explain why. It's just all about understanding how the speeder clips the player. And you'll see that what I'm doing with both players will probably look very weird until he just magically goes through the door. And who knows how long it'll take, because this is a very difficult trick. But
yeah, like Zach said, this is a tough one to explain, but like it's really just the positioning of the speeder and the player against the wall that matters here. He does have an 11-minute tutorial explaining this one trick if you would like to learn more about it. It's somewhere, but there we go. Nice. It looks super simple, but there is a lot of very, very small technicalities that went into why that worked.
Yeah, and right there is a prime example of why exploding blaster bolts is so broken, because normally to skip that barrier, you actually have to build an ATST in the room, or earlier in this room, which you have to complete a bunch of puzzles and go behind doors to even get certain parts of the ATST. But when we have exploding blaster bolts, we can literally just shoot the barrier and walk through. So that, grabbing that alone just saves like 40 seconds right there.
When did 3PO get a top hat?
I guess in the cutscene. I mean, I can't really tell you.
This is a great cutscene.
I
This
think
is
the
my
lore
favorite
for
cutscene
that
in the
is
episode.
because droids aren't allowed in the cantina, so they're disguising them.
Which is, as you saw, I shot those 4 little lights at the beginning of the room that we were just in. Those actually push the droids away. They're not allowed to come through, and that's why I have to shoot them.
Yeah. I remember getting stuck on those as a kid because I had no idea what to do in that room.
Yeah, definitely this game, just as a kid, it's actually really hard. It's like casually a very difficult game because it is primarily like a puzzle game, I guess. And so it definitely
I
stumped me
think
a
that's
little
something
bit.
even the developers of the game have commented on, is like one of the things that not necessarily that they regret about the earlier games, but the earlier Lego games are extremely hard to figure out just where you're supposed to go. They give you no directions whatsoever. And this next room is a prime example. You have this movie theater at the top of the screen, which you're not going to really get to see, but there's a movie theater at the top of the screen.
over
There's
there.
all these brown doors here. Where do you need to go? This sketchy little white door in the corner here is where you're supposed to go.
And right
it
here, he's
no
gonna do-
indication there.
Yeah. He's gonna do a skip called Spy Fight Skip here. Basically, see if we can get it. Tough.
All right, well, this is gonna be a big time loss. Yeah, so essentially if you precisely call in R2 right like at the edge of the trigger, you can actually force push him past the trigger. But, you know, if you miss it, you have to go through this whole long fight instead.
Yeah.
And it's not like super long, but you can see there's like 3 stages to it, and this is why that trick actually saves so much time. But it is a difficult one, and the strat that I was going for actually is another micro optimization. It's a about 2 seconds faster version of the trick, and it's extremely punishing to miss. But you know, that's just sort of the strats that we have to go for at this level.
And it's unfortunate we didn't actually get to see what happens when you skip that fight, but if you noticed when he first came in the room, when the Imperial spy was standing next to the Millennium Falcon, the door was actually open, and then when you trigger the fight, the door shuts. But when you avoid the trigger for the fight and force push R2 past it, the door is just still open, and you can just get in the Falcon and leave without doing the fight. It's kind of fun.
Right. And yeah, it looks pretty seamless. You kind of just call him in and walk into the Falcon, and you're like, that doesn't look like it skips that much, but
Yeah.
now you can see it's definitely a long fight. But you know, we do all these sorts of optimizations that can cost us a ton of time, and like right there, that would be like a reset. Obviously, not a huge deal now, but you know, that's sort of why it can be. It's like such an optimized run. It can be really difficult to get through the early game because of all these like tiny little strats we're doing. And the next level is actually a good example of it. And you'll see like all the little micro optimizations here in the next level.
Yes, the next level is rescue the princess. Basically, the objective is we get pulled into the Death Star. We have to find Princess Leia. And it kind of starts off with a really wacky out of bounds. Like we've said before, collision in this game is really weird. Kill planes in this game are also really weird. And what you're going to see Zach do right at the beginning of the level is he's going to jump off an edge, and he's actually going to get under a kill plane. It's really precise because the kill plane doesn't extend out all the way. So if he fits himself in between the spot where he can actually walk and where the kill plane is, he'll be able to get out of bounds and skip the cutscene where the droids are using the panel in the next room.
And as we get into it, you'll be able to see sort of the out of bounds mechanics. As long as you are under anything, you can walk out of bounds. And so even though I'm under basically nothing, it'll actually let me walk out of bounds at the beginning of the trick.
Also, right here, we will get to see once he gets out of bounds. So he's going to fall down and get in that little pocket like we were talking about to get out of bounds. And right here, he's going to drop from being underneath the floor into the open air and kind of fall down a little bit to kind of cut off that corner. Small little 1 second time save, and he can jump up in the door there. And that actually skips a cutscene that normally plays. And right here, we are kind of...
Here comes Obi-Wan.
Yeah, so Obi-Wan jumps across to the other side, and he needs to show up to force a bridge so he can progress in the level. However, sometimes he just doesn't show up. He gets stuck on some barrels in the hallway. So right now we are just praying that Obi-Wan comes running through the door any second now. Okay, there he is.
I was a little worried there. It's not really, I mean, it's a little bit in your control, but we're not totally sure why sometimes Obi-Wan just, you know, decides to, like, I don't know, go on vacation or something over there.
And luckily he did show up, but that was still slow. Like, he just came like 8 seconds slow for no reason. Sometimes he'll already be there by the time you get there, and then other times you have to wait like that. Close call.
So that was a good example of reactions. Basically, you have to react to those pilots showing up there in the hallway, and you saw they came for my neck. They really wanted to kill me, and I had to immediately react because that helmet. Oh wow. Well, now we're gonna have to get a new one.
Something to
This is
note,
actually not too bad.
Yeah, something to note, and we'll actually see it here, is if you pick up a helmet in one room, when you enter the next room with it, every enemy will actually be de-aggroed. So those enemies were aggroed right here, but once he picks his helmet up and walks into this next room, no one's actually going to be shooting at him. And it gives him enough time to build this panel and just use it without having to kill any enemies in here.
Because that's what
I don't know
stormtroopers do,
why.
right?
I mean, yeah, they just think
just
I'm a
build panels,
stormtrooper,
you know?
I guess.
Completely oblivious.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as you can see, I think they may have caught on to my disguise a little bit.
Yeah.
And now they have decided to murder me, so...
It's okay, we have exploding bolts. They have no chance against us.
Exactly.
Plus, stormtroopers can't aim anyways, so...
Yeah.
They don't
It
have
is
a pro
funny,
speedrunner on their side.
So the stormtroopers actually, it almost feels like they have worse aim than the droids in the prequels.
They really do. I don't know why.
I agree.
Especially in the early game in episode 1, and we can even highlight it when we get to episode 3 in a specific level, but it seems like the droids just have aimbot sometimes. And it can be really hard to avoid deaths, but it's a little easier with the stormtroopers.
And I can confirm, I've looked in the source code, and I don't think that was on purpose, but who knows? Maybe it was. Maybe they're smarter than me.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a fun level coming up here.
Here we go.
This is one of my favorites.
This is one of my favorites too. Not my favorite in terms of what it does to my mind, but little. it's very rough, and you'll see why. Basically, the entire concept of this level. Look, I'm sorry, John Burton, this level is poorly programmed. Okay, you have to take a helmet all the way from one room to basically 4 rooms after that, and the stormtroopers are shooting at you the entire time. And if you don't, you lose like a minute. So it's pretty fun.
So
You'll see why.
at the start of the level, he's gonna grab a helmet here, and he cannot get shot a single time, because if you get shot a single time, your helmet falls off. And if that happens, there's not really many spots in the level where you can get a new one. So it's usually a pretty devastating time loss if that happens. So this is where he's gonna get the helmet, and now player 1 cannot be shot until like 2 minutes from now or something.
Yeah.
I think it's actually longer than that.
It does depend. The time loss really varies on where you lose your helmet as well. There is a spot where losing your helmet will only lose like 6 seconds.
Yeah, and then there's a spot where it will lose like 56 seconds. So gotta be careful.
Right here's a pretty cool trick. If you stand completely still while you use that grapple, you can get a jump out of thin air like that, and skip a little puzzle on the left side there.
And it's actually a lot of time.
Yeah, and here is where the real challenge of keeping the helmet begins. So first wave, he successfully killed. All right, time for the second wave. All right, successfully kills those guys. And the final 3, very
That was
nice.
close.
A bullet came
yeah.
whizzing by Han's head, but
Yeah, and you can see that's what makes it so sketchy. Oh, and we're not done.
oh yeah, I got one more pack of guys, but
This is
normally-
only the prologue to the full story.
Then we get into the most fun room in the game. I'm sure many would agree. We like to call this one Ripmore. It's shaped similarly to a mountain, and it kills all of your runs. Yeah. So here we go. 2 stormtroopers down here. They don't suspect a thing, but unfortunately, we have to pull this lever. And once we do that, let's just say things get a little complicated.
Kill
So
those
we have
3
to kill
nice and
these
quick.
guys so we can build this. And we'll see if he gets a Diagro here. Like he's
This-
got
I
This
heard,
looks
I
good.
heard them.
Oh.
I don't think this is.
Okay, good.
Nice,
All right.
nice.
Now here comes an interesting trick. So normally in speedruns, you always are going forwards. Like that's just kind of what speedrunning's all about. But in a strange choice, Zach is gonna start sprinting backwards to the previous room of the level. He is just running straight back. He has no care in the world, and he's gonna go in this corner, and he's gonna start going forwards again. And you may ask, why did he do that? Like, does that not
Swag
just...
strat, maybe?
Yeah, did he go back there just for fun, you know? But there's actually a reason he did that, and we'll get to see that in just a moment.
Again, you have to keep your helmet there, because why not just make it even worse?
At this point, he doesn't need the helmet though. If he gets shot, it's fine.
Right. At this point, I guess they just kind of give up on your disguise. I think maybe like 5 minutes in, they're like, all right, we know you're Han Solo, and
So
it
as you
doesn't
can see,
really
there's
matter
like
anymore.
a billion stormtroopers here, but he's just gonna pick up the power up and ignore them. And he's heading into the final room of the level here. And in this final room, you normally need to complete a bunch of little puzzles to raise the Millennium Falcon out of the floor, but he is just going to jump into the end level
And it's
trigger
over.
in midair. And the reason that is possible is because he backtracked. If you
Yeah.
try to jump into that door without backtracking, it's not there. But for whatever reason, by loading in the level file for this room and going far enough back in the level to deload the level file and then reloading it again, for some reason by doing that, this door becomes active even without raising the Millennium Falcon from the ground. And you can just dip out. And that saves over a minute.
Yeah, the most technical explanation I can give is there's a little divide in the level, and that's called a split spline. And by looking through a level editor that was made by some community members, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, and through the source code and through our dedicated glitch hunters, which we do have quite a few of, we were able to notice that by passing through the split spline, which essentially splits the level in half, we could load that second half of the level in, deload it, and then load it back in. And what that would do is it would reset the state of the door in the end room. And the way that the door in the end room works is that it goes through a set of states and by completing each little puzzle in the end room, it'll progress through the states. And when it gets to the final state, the Falcon comes up. But what happens is we just reset it to the final state, and the Falcon doesn't actually come up because we haven't actually hit the trigger for it to come up. And so the door is there, and so all we have to do is just touch that door, and we're done with the level.
And to clarify what a spline is, the developers for this game used these, they're literally just like lines drawn, like invisible lines drawn through the level that indicate a bunch of pieces of information. And the split spline is just the one that has to do with map loading, basically. And it just happens that the split spline for that room is right by that helmet dispenser. So he runs just past it, deload the end room, and then cross over to load it in again. And then that door becomes active. And now we're on to Rebel Attack, the final level of episode 4, which is just a lot of shooting torpedoes into targets. It's not a super convoluted level, just a matter of focusing on good MP2C ability.
Yes, until now.
Yeah, coming up in this next room, we're gonna do a skip called Room 3 skip. So we're gonna load this transition in, and then he's gonna go backwards. And there's actually a small gap right here where the wall doesn't extend, or at least the collision doesn't extend with the wall. So he can just go backwards and skip that entire third room.
Yeah,
And
pretty.
it actually, it is a little more precise than it looks, just because you can accidentally reload the previous room if you go a little too far. But that was a job well done.
Yeah, and the strat that I did there is a very it's a faster setup based on a slower setup. So it's not entirely just winging it. We're not just like, looks like it's good to go here, because that is what some people do or used to do. But it is a setup based on a couple of visual cues that involves some pretty quick reactions to those visual cues that enable you to pretty much know exactly where you're going to be and when to start turning. And that's why I use the D-pad for it. Keyboard players obviously will just use the keyboard, but some setups in this game have been standardized using the keyboard or the D-pad because it's one cardinal direction, sort of like notches on a N64 controller, allowing you to ensure a lot more consistency with some things like that trick, and even skip we'll see coming up in the next episode. That end room.
Final shot on the Death Star.
And we're done.
Episode 4 complete.
And that pretty much marks the halfway point of the run. And if you think that was crazy, I think it does get even crazier after this. I think the second half of the run is where things start to get really insane. Every level is just jam-packed with insane skips, and that's mainly because the original trilogy levels, which there are 2 of in the second half, are actually extremely broken compared to a lot of the prequel levels.
Right.
So you should probably talk about resets here as I
start
doing
so,
one.
One thing we do, so normally if we were doing real attempts, we'd actually be save canceling all the way until this point. Save canceling saves about 40 seconds, just because the game doesn't have to save and it doesn't have to spend that time saving. But right here is when normally we would save the game and then we'd actually close it and reset it. And what that allows us to do is skip the entire finished story cutscene of episode 4, because the level actually saves, when we save the game after that status screen. The finished story cutscene is after the status screen. So we can just skip that entire cutscene and load up the file. And what he's going to do right here, since you spawn in the cantina after a reset, is he's just going to go ahead and buy the red brick that we picked up in the second level of episode 4, which is Fast Force. And now we're going to head into episode 6, not episode 5 or 3. And like Zach mentioned earlier, this is just because of more red brick routing. We'll pick up a red brick in the 6th level of this episode. That's very useful in episode 5.
And coming into episode 6, this is definitely generally regarded as being one of the hardest episodes. There's going to be 2 levels in this episode that are pretty easy, but the other 4 are really, really difficult, have a lot of very tough execution sections as well, some pretty precise skips, especially Jabba's Palace, which is the one we're coming into right now. There are going to be 2 somewhat precise out-of-bounds clips that we're going to get to see.
So while I have a second, I will remind everyone that if you have missed out on anything prior to this and you want to go back and see or missed any of the other GDQ Hotfix shows, you can check out our archive of the past runs and shows at youtube.com/GamesDoneQuick. And of course, if you're on YouTube, feel free to join us over at twitch.tv/GamesDoneQuick. Check out our live shows starting most nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget, while you're there, Hotfix is funded in part thanks to your subscriptions and bits. Please consider subscribing to help support future broadcasts.
Okay, I think my game is lagging very much. Let me just... Yeah, I might have to check something real quick. Not totally sure what's happening. All right, might have to take a break and resolve this. It looks like it happened when I reset the game. All right. All right, I'll pause the timer in... Ooh, do I have a pause key? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now? All right.
Alrighty, while we go ahead and get all this squared and fixed away, just one more quick announcement. Also, Games Done Quick 2022 online will be January 9th through the 16th. Visit GamesDoneQuick.com for more information and detailed dates for the event. And of course, while we all talked about our live show starting most nights at 7 Eastern, feel free to check out The First Step tomorrow, where Keys and Hobbs are going to be doing Resident Evil 2 Remake. That's going to be right here at 7 p.m. Eastern. Welcome back to the Bargain Bin, a show about speedrunning games all under $20. All seems to be fixed over here. Just another quick announcement. The GDQ Sum of Best Segments is a highlight channel with small highlight reels for all of our main events and hotfix. Use exclamation mark highlights in chat or Twitch chat to learn more. I got a little flustered there for some odd reason. Zach, whenever you are ready, go ahead and take it away.
All right, we're probably going to start right as this cutscene ends. So that's going to be 3, 2, 1, resume. All right, yeah, some lag and a very odd audio issue. That probably means I'm just going to avoid resetting the game here in the future, just because that seemed to cause some technical difficulties with the stream, but that's not too bad. The resets, they're just a strict time save by like, 15, 20 seconds, something like that, just because you're able to, get back into the cantina even faster, but, we're probably not going to be doing that in the... Well, I guess we are only skipping 2 more resets, so, not a huge issue.
Not a huge deal, and we're not going to let the technical difficulties prevent us from showing off these last 3 episodes, because this is really where we're going to start to see some really exciting glitches, and we're just going to continue on. So as you can see, we're seeing more examples of helmet escort, which is where you need to get a helmet and bring it to these panels. Obviously, we saw it back in episode 4 with the Stormtrooper helmets. And now we have these Bounty Hunter helmets.
And this level is one of the most broken levels in the game. And you'll see why sort of after, or I guess at the end of this room is where it starts to get crazy.
Coming up here, I believe, is the first type of a new skip, and this is a dropout camera pan skip. So normally a camera pan plays of this gate opening, but if he drops out right when it starts to play, the camera pan does not play, and he just skipped it, just like that.
Very similar to the camera pan skips where you would switch to a different player.
Yeah, essentially what it does is by dropping out or swapping, it adjusts the camera angle, and when you adjust the camera angle enough, it kind of like moves the camera away from where it's panning to, and so it just decides to completely cancel out that camera pan animation.
Coming up here, this is called Droid Avoid, as you are avoiding rescuing your droids here by clipping out of bounds using that little forcible object. And
There they are.
that is one of the newer tricks in the game, and funnily enough, it was just found by someone playing around on the mobile version of the game. They just kind of found it on accident, and they were like, does anyone know about this? And no,
This
we
level,
didn't.
There you go.
funnily enough, has a bunch of accidental skips. Or accidental discoveries of skips, I should say.
Yeah, we do have another accidental skip coming up. So this clip right here is called Spiderless because we originally would clip out of bounds using this platform by riding that mechanical spider on the ground there. But now, with a very precise setup, we found out that you can just clip out using your player and not being in the spider. And we can run out of bounds all the way to the end room. And a runner by the name of Led Astray was practicing this strat, and he jumped up in the end room right here, and he instantly got whooped to the end fight like that. And he was like, well, how in the world did that happen? Normally you have to use the bounty hunter panel at the end of the room, and it plays a whole cutscene. And we found out that if you jump in bounds on that grate on the floor, there is a door in the ground there that just takes you to the end fight. It skips the entire cutscene, skips the animation of you needing to use the bounty hunter panel, and it saves a lot of time. And it was found completely accidentally just because someone was practicing the other skip.
And that's like
part
what,
of the
a 1 minute
theory-
long cutscene.
Yeah, it's really long. I think part of the theory is that they originally had other parts of the level planned that they deleted, and that was just something left over. Because there's no reason you would ever hit that door without going out of bounds.
I always find those are the best type of glitches and skips and stuff to find is when you're like trying to do something else and in the process you just discover something out of nowhere.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many of those there are in this run. There's a ton.
I remember the night it was found. It was like, so Led Astray is from Russia, and I'm from America, so very different time zones. It's like 4 a.m. and he posts in the Discord about this potential new skip that skips this entire cutscene and everything, and it's 4 a.m. on a school night, and I'm just like, oh, man, I am not going to bed tonight. Like, I knew. I was like about to fall asleep, and then I was like, all right, time to get back on and look at this.
Yeah, we like to call it skip day. It's an occasion. You know, when new big skips are found, it's really, really fun because we get to explore all the possibilities. And honestly, at this point, when we find new big skips, usually it's a new like strat or like new tech. So like a good example was the skip in Death Star Escape where we skipped the entire end room and I just jumped into the transition. Well, as soon as that got found, we were like, this has to work somewhere else, right? And so we ended up being able to pull that off in another level, except it's way, way, way harder. And it's actually the last level. And so it's not done RTA currently, but we're kind of working towards a meta where it might be pulled off eventually. It's just very difficult to do.
It also saves much less time than the one in Death Star Escape does, so runners don't really go for it.
It's not a hard skip to do, it's a hard skip to save time with, I guess, to be very clear.
Yeah. So this next level is, I guess, one of the hardest levels in the game, and at the same time, also one of the most RNG heavy levels in the game. And so you'll see here that there's I guess maybe three. But there's basically two major skips in this level. And the first one is just pure jump spacing, which we mentioned jump spacing earlier and why it's so difficult. And the second one, I don't even know how to begin with that one. It's essentially, we don't really fully understand how it works yet, but it's like a combination of camera manipulation and out of bounds, object building and 1P2C, and it's very confusing and it loses a lot of time to miss it, and it's largely inconsistent, so we'll see how that one goes. Obviously, the AI in this game is not very friendly. As you can see, Luke decided to
follow
just
you there, and that costed you a couple seconds, and there's like, who knows why that happened.
Yeah.
We'll see another example of finicky AI when we get to the 4th level in this episode as well.
Definitely the most obscene example of finicky AI is that level. It's almost the entire level revolves around controlling the AI from both your party and other parties
Now,
against the enemy.
Did Han fall earlier? Did I see that? Or was that just me?
They both fell, yeah.
Oh, they both fell. Okay. Because it makes sense for Han to fall.
Okay,
So
so I got
right-
that first try.
Yeah, right there was a jump we call topless, just because it avoids you having to go to the very top of the skiff or the barge, I guess. And that is an example of one of those really well-timed, well-spaced jumps. I believe that one is a 3
That's
or 4
3,
frame
4,
window.
yeah.
3
something
frame
like that.
window for your second jump. Yep.
Yeah.
This is also a skip you can do here.
Yeah,
Allows you to skip.
this is an easy one, and it kind of capitalizes on the fact that doing a Jedi Slam gives you a little bit of like a height boost. And normally you can't jump into that elevator, but by doing a slam attack, you can just barely hit the door of the elevator without building the elevator.
Well, boys, we're in for a long one here.
Yeah, this
No
is
telling how long this one's going to take. We do have a setup that standardizes it, but it's not entirely consistent. And we do have like camera manipulation that we try to do at the beginning of the room, but that's not necessarily perfect. So third try is, not the worst thing in the world. Obviously, we're still saving time with it because it breaks a huge puzzle, but
Yeah,
it's,
so
it's
obviously
very inconsistent.
Yeah, so he clips out using the speaker there, and like he said, we hold exact directions to maximize our odds of getting the trick. However, we believe that it is also dependent on like sort of a naturally resting camera angle, and that's dependent on like the line you take in the room. So if you go a little bit too far left, a little bit too far right, the camera gets offset a very microscopic amount that can mess up the standardization for the setup, basically. So we make sure that we take a very, very like exact line in that room to ensure that the camera is in the most ideal position possible. And there's a couple rooms that are like that.
And this is
that's-
another example of EVB. Normally we have to go all the way to the other end of the barge and activate a turret, which you actually just saw right there in the cutscene. But we can actually just blow up those targets with exploding blaster bolts instead.
That's it for Carcoon.
I always forget, since like we've watched these cutscenes hundreds of times, I always forget how ridiculous some of them can be.
Yeah, the next level has pretty reasonable cutscenes, but the one after that, not so much.
Yeah. So this level coming up is actually the level with the biggest skip in the entire game, and it's the one Zach alluded to earlier with the 4-minute time save. And it involves flipping over some barriers.
And it's
skips the
the
entire-
only, yeah, exactly. It skips pretty much the entire level.
Yes.
Like there's almost nothing.
The name of the level is Speeder Showdown, because you're supposed to get on the speeders, as you can see right there in the cutscene, which is a vehicle, and you need to fight against these troopers in the speeder. But you skip that entire section, and that is a very long and drawn-out section that even the casual player will probably get quite bored with. Without the skip, this would be the longest level in the game.
Yeah. Also, it was just kind of glossed over there, but that jump he did off the flower there actually saves about 20 seconds. Because there's a puzzle to get Luke over, which we can just skip with a well-spaced jump.
Yeah, and it's not super easy either. I believe I missed it once in my current world record. So okay, this next skip, this is where you're not going to be able to tell what's happening, but there you go. We skipped
just saved
4
4
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll go into a little more depth. So we put both of the speeders on top of each other there, and player 1's speeder takes priority over player 2, and player 1 will actually get a bit of a height boost from player 2 just by them being on top of each other. And so if Zach does a backflip with player 1, he kind of turns around, does a backflip, he gets enough height to where if he jumps out of the speeder, he can actually just jump over the barrier and just hit the transition to this next room, which just skips the entire speeder section where we have to kill the stormtroopers.
Right, and you saw right before I entered this room, I was able to do a little pixel jump, which I think is the first instance of a what we call pixel jump, although it's not entirely an invisible pixel, but I actually jumped off the lever to hit a room transition that extends just outside that circular pillar, because room transitions are actually squares, so they just extend a little bit further out.
All right, and that's the whole level. Because he
less than 3 minutes.
You may have saw, like, you could still even see the little speeder icons with the troopers at the bottom of his screen, because the game currently thinks that you are in a fight with the troopers in the speeder, but in reality you are just already way past that.
Yeah. All right, longest level in the game coming up next. It's the longest level by quite a large margin, actually. I think over 20 seconds now. It's almost 7 minutes, and if you're good, it's a little under 7 minutes. But this is also one of the hardest levels in the game. So much execution, so much RNG management and reaction, because managing your AI in this level is really tough. And you'll see we manipulate the AI, what, like 3 times in this level or something? Like intentionally? I think it's 3 or 4. Depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, you have to be ready to react to your characters being stupid, because chances are they are going to be stupid at one point during the level, and you need to know what to do about that. They will be running into corners, they will get stuck on buttons, they don't want to follow you. Anything that can happen can happen. This level is a complete disaster from the how well your CPUs are able to follow you.
Yeah, which is the challenge, of course. And my favorite instance of that is that if there's a plant in the way, in one of the rooms, R2-D2 just doesn't go past it. Instead of going around it, he just stands in front of it and does not move, because apparently he doesn't know how to do that. So, you know, it gets a little chaotic.
Maybe R2's just admiring plants?
Yes, perhaps. I'm going to be going for this 1P2C here, by the way, if you want to talk about that, Evan.
Yeah, so basically what he's doing with R2 is flying against these rails, and if he does it long enough, he'll actually be able to land on top of them. Not really that one, because you can just fly on top of it, but the first one, for sure, skipping this entire first room. And the reason he doesn't drop out there is just to save a dropout.
Good AI right there, just standing in front of me. This is where it begins.
Having 6 people part of your team, which is this the only level where you have that many?
Carcoon also is 6,
Carcoon,
but they're spread out.
This level you have 6 for the entire level. Carcoon is only at the very end. And having this many people on your team is really hard to manage, and whenever you load a new room, they just kind of spread out in random directions. It's not like R2 will always be here, Leia will always be here. They just kind of get spewed out in random directions, so you have to quickly react to and find whoever you need to switch to.
Yeah, and he's going to get ghost hearts right there with Han. That's a really big factor into this level, how fast you're going to go, because near the end of the level, we are going to enter the bunker, and it's a really close quarters area with a ton of enemies, so it's really nice to be able to just shoot EVB mindlessly. And right there, he actually went back and checked if his party was there. Just another example of how bad the AI is in this level. Sometimes when you go up that ramp, your entire team won't follow you, and you'll have to go back and get them, because you need all 6 of them to get past this room.
All right, and so the buttons, we call this 12 button room because, you know, aptly named, there are 12 buttons. So I'm gonna go grab Wicket. And the reason that we don't actually stand on the left button is because putting Wicket on the left button can end up causing some issues. For whatever reason, you really have to be very careful with the way that you 1P2C in this room. So I'm gonna keep Wicket on this button, and I'm going to wait for them both to go up the grapple before I go, otherwise they won't come after me. And then now I'm going to do a little bit of 1P2C here, and I will show you what I mean with this R2 thing. I'm going to have to shoot all these plants here, otherwise R2 just doesn't know what to do. Even though, as you can see, they're clearly not in his way, it's just a weird pathfinding thing that this game has to offer. So that's a cool 1P2C extension that you're able to do to, you know, be able to shoot without letting go of your dive rolls with Han.
And right here, he's going to do another AI manipulation. So if he just stands in the top right corner of this bunker here, his AI is going to think that he's standing on top of the bunker. And so they're just going to warp to the top without you having to do any of the side tracking to get to the top there. And you can just build the puzzle layers to show off. And after he builds this, he's going to enter the bunker, which is regarded by some people as one of the more difficult 1P2C sections in the run, just because there's so much to focus on with both players, especially since player 2 doesn't have ghost hearts, so it can be very easy to die with player 2. He's going to hit both these buttons here to combine the cutscene of those platforms coming out. Small little time save.
More box pushing, which happens to be one of the more tricky mechanics in the game, believe it or not. The casual mechanics in this game are probably the hardest thing. Pushing the box at a weird camera angle is just so difficult for some reason.
I will say, having Han push 3PO up the stairs is very on brand.
Yes.
Yeah, I never thought about that. That's funny.
He needs that droid to get moving.
But yeah,
and another AI manipulation here coming up.
Oh yeah. So we call this one Wicket's Grand Adventure. And basically, when we stand in this corner right here and pan the camera, Wicket's actually just gonna teleport into that room right there with the stormtroopers, and we can get a de-aggro on the stormtrooper. And this is kind of a cool little piece of tech that we only really see here in the run sometimes. But if a stormtrooper de-aggros when it's on any sort of panel, since the button to put your gun away, which is the button to de-aggro, is the same as the button to use a panel, you'll actually just use the panel. And so we can manipulate stormtroopers to use panels for us if we need be, like in that case right there. Just a little bit faster than going over there with Wicket to pull the lever.
I also performed another camera pan skip with a character swap like we saw in Escape, except that one is a lot harder. A quick sub 7. Oh, right, by the way, right there.
That
was a good Endor.
Let's go.
Sub 7 Endor. One of the more difficult tasks to get in a run. I would be happy with this on a world record pace. So yeah, that's a hard level for sure.
Yeah, that was a clean Endor.
All right, who wants to explain this one?
I will.
Maybe we should just do it.
Yeah, you know what? We won't say anything. We'll just
do
let
it.
Play out. But for the level though, this is the Emperor fight. This is like the ultimate final boss of Lego Star Wars, I guess. It's
Right, because this is episode 6. This is supposed to be the last episode, the last movie.
Yeah.
This actually is not the final level in episode 6. So this is there's still one more level after this, but
Right.
This is the Emperor fight, and there's a cool skip, and we'll just let you watch it.
The entire level is a boss fight, a very long boss fight with the Emperor. You have control of both Luke and Vader, and then, as you saw in the movie, hopefully we can take the W against the Emperor. We'll see what happens. You know, well, it's a little bit of a tricky fight. And it also makes use of a cool piece of tech, which is, I guess you could call it a piece of tech, but just body blocking in general, and I'll leave it there for now.
Wow, the Emperor has 20 hearts. This is going to be
Oh,
This is gonna be a
wow.
long
crazy.
run. All right.
Whoa, you killed him! Oh my god.
And that's
wow.
Yeah, so the crazy thing about that level is that you can skip the entire boss fight by, just like in the movie, throwing him off the edge. I don't know if that was intended or not. It definitely wasn't. But if he falls into that death plane, just like where you push him off in the movie, he just dies. And And when he dies, the level's over. Unfortunately, this isn't something that we can make use of in many other levels, but we can do this in other LEGO games, actually. So Lego Batman, I don't know, Lego Batman 2 also, I don't know, some other LEGO games, I'm probably wrong. But I know Lego Batman makes use of that tech. We like to call it a quick kill, or in this case, an ultra kill, because it's an even faster version of the quick kill.
Yeah, and that's actually the only spot in the game where we can push a boss off the edge. He has a very specific property in the code where normally when you push a boss off the edge, the boss will just jump back up to the platform. But the Emperor's value for that is false or true.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
it makes you wonder if they did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, I really doubt it, but it's like,
I wouldn't be
kind of
surprised.
weird that that's
if it
the
was
only
intended.
place. Yeah,
Little
the
Easter
developers of
egg.
this game, they went a little crazy when they were coding it.
I don't know why, but I just really like the Lego design of Amon Calamari after seeing it in this game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The great thing is that they're extremely overpowered in this game too. They just don't have much use in the speed run, but it is pretty cool.
All right, if you want to explain what's happening here, that might be helpful. Let's just say a lot of RNG going on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got it, just.
He needs to get 8 torpedoes here to destroy these 4 destroyers, 2 torpedoes per. And he gets the torpedoes by destroying these ships. As you can see, one of them had a torpedo there. There's 3 types of ships that can spawn, and only one of them has torpedoes on the back. So it means that for every one that you destroy, it's a 1 in 3 chance that it's a torpedo one. And looks like so far he is getting pretty lucky odds. However, there are definitely times where you can find yourself just kind of mindlessly sitting here, just plowing through a bunch of these TIE fighters, getting no torpedoes whatsoever. But that seems like pretty good RNG. So
148, by the way.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Usually you want to shoot for something in the 140s, so that was pretty solid. But yeah, that is another big RNG section of the run, similar to Jedi Battle.
That one is a lot more method to the madness than Jedi Battle, I would say. It's largely controllable because, you know, you focus on just trying to kill as many ships as possible. But of course, in Jedi Battle, you can only kill so many droids, right? You have that slow shoot, like shooting on Padme's blaster, and that's pretty much all you can do. But in this level, it's about using both players to maximize the amount of kills you're getting.
That is a mechanic in ship levels, as opposed to when you're playing as a character with a blaster. You kind of have like a limit to how frequently you can shoot. It's maybe like whatever, like half second. In the ship levels, there's no limit on how fast you can shoot, so you can just spam as fast as you want and just absolutely just mow through all of the TIE fighters.
I'll make sure to show you guys that in the next level.
Yeah.
Didn't get that torpedo. We're gonna have to go grab one.
Should be fine. This level has a prime example of torpedo storage as well, because we need a ton of torpedoes to advance through the level, and we don't want to backtrack all the way to this torpedo dispenser again. So once he actually gets 3 here, or I guess this is a prime example of the power of 1P2C as well, because normally if he's just using 1 player, he can only hold 3 torpedoes, but now he can hold 6, which is a good amount for the rest of the level to be completed.
He needs 4 for the rest of the level, as long as none of them blank in the wall, which
Looking good so
it
far.
did not happen there, but it can definitely still happen going into the. Well, he did die. Hopefully, he can get both torpedoes back.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay, now we're good.
Yeah. So what he's gonna do here, actually, before he blows up the core, is he's gonna shoot this, which will open the little dispenser for the red brick. And this red brick is infinite torpedoes, which is very useful in episode 5. I wish it was in a different episode so we could have it for this level, but unfortunately we cannot.
As you saw at the beginning, getting torpedoes was the absolute worst part of the level. You know, you just sit there and hope to randomly get some from some ships, and if we had infinite torpedoes, we wouldn't need to, but lo and behold, the only level where it really, really matters is is this one, and that's where we have to get it. So
And
Yeah.
when he was grabbing the red brick there, he actually did go for a somewhat risky strat where he shot the core of the Death Star and then grabbed the red brick. When you shoot the core of the Death Star, it kind of starts like a 7-second timer or somewhere around there. And the second that time is up, you are stuck in the auto scroller. You cannot go back, which means that you have 7 seconds to grab that red brick, and if you miss it, well, you are not getting that red brick. So
yep, and that's a huge time loss in Falcon Flight, which is one of the later levels you'll see in episode 5. And when I say huge time loss, I mean slow and also painful. So you really don't want to miss it because it's very
and
punishing.
it's very rare for someone to actually lose a
Yeah.
run there, but it definitely has happened. Basically, I think everyone at some point has lost at least one run to
Yeah.
having a disaster. Usually they end up dying as they're going to grab the red brick because like a TIE fighter shoots them and then they get like stuck in the corner or something and then they just can't grab it.
Reminder not to reset.
Right, I was about to. Yeah, I'm not going to reset just because we had some technical difficulties with it last time. But normally we would reset here and then open the game and then get into episode 3, because the two episodes we have left are 3 and 5, and 3 has access to an extra in the first level that we're going to need for episode 5. And fortunately, we don't really need any of the extras in episode 5. And there's definitely tons of different routing conversations we've had. There is fast build, which you can imagine is similar to fast force. That's in episode 5, but we kind of ditch it because the time it would take to grab fast build that early messes up some of the routing in other places, longer cutscene, end cutscene, and then like we basically timed it. It's actually not faster. So this is the fastest route, but there are some other routes that people have run on, just they're not optimal anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad we get to see this cutscene.
Yeah, this is a great cutscene.
Yeah.
People are saying
I don't get to
this
see
is
it
a
very
cutscene.
often.
We never watch this because we normally restart the game.
Yeah,
This is,
exactly.
like,
We also get to see the episode 3 finished story cutscene, which is also a gem.
That's a great cutscene, honestly.
it's
right.
interesting.
Let's see if I can figure out the proper
Yeah, this is a movement
routing
that
here
we don't
that I
normally
have
do.
never done before.
Yeah, so he actually doesn't need to go to the shop in between episodes here because the red brick that we grabbed in episode 6 has
Oh,
no
nice!
use.
Look at that.
That was
Han
good.
Solo, fastest movement character in story mode,
Yeah.
tied with Yoda.
Yeah, finding Han Solo in the cantina on the way to Battle over Coruscant is always a bit of a dopamine rush. Get to
Juicy
save
couple
like
frames.
save 0.2 seconds maybe.
All right, so I'll go ahead and at the beginning of this level, I'll show the difference between a story, a ground level where you have a limit on shooting, and of course, a ship level where you can just pretty much, if you hold the buttons down, it's like this, and then if you spam, you can literally just go as fast as you want. And then if you spam with both players, you can get quite a few shots off at the same time. So
Yeah. Yeah. And this level actually has a small thing that is a decent time save. Basically what he's doing is he actually has both players in, and he's shuttle boosting. So he's keeping one of his players in front of the other one, and it actually pushes his characters forward, giving him a little bit of a speed boost. So it saves, I think, like 4 seconds throughout the entire
4,
level.
yeah.
It's something really small, but if you hyper focus, it's a good time save, and it's pretty easy as well. You just follow your players. But this is kind of the big level that we always called the sleeper level, or the auto-scroller.
This was that boring level we were talking about earlier. It's literally like a 3-minute auto scroller, and every run, not every run, but a lot of runs are gonna have something like this, and luckily it's pretty far into the run, so if anything, it's just kind of a nice like breath of fresh air. Take a quick little break.
Right.
yeah,
But
the THI
it's pretty
of
boring.
Lego Star Wars, if you will.
I don't I don't know if I would say that.
But yeah, it's pretty boring.
Yeah. One good thing about this level actually is that one of the red bricks that we pick up in the run is in this level, which is actually really nice because it literally takes 0 time to grab. As opposed to like the fast force brick we grabbed where we had to do an entire detour with an out of bounds. This one we can literally just fly right through and grab the red brick. Yeah, and this red brick will come up later in episode 5 as well.
Yeah, and I guess while we're just kind of waiting for this level to be over, like a couple things we can go over since we haven't talked about it since the start of the run for anyone just tuning in. So first off, Zach is controlling 2 players, one on the controller, one on the keyboard. He is using one hand for each player, and the current objective of the run is to complete all 6 episodes, which is going to be 36 levels, and we're doing it slightly out of order. So we've currently completed 4 episodes. This is episode 3, and we have episode 5 left, and then after that we'll be finished.
I will say it's very this level is very, very like detailed. There's so much going on.
It really is.
It's a lot of people's favorite level, which is crazy to me now, considering it's like my least favorite level, but casually it's pretty sick, especially with the music, which fortunately Lucasfilm won't let us play.
It definitely was my favorite level as a kid. I will say, I definitely replayed this level all the time. I think the auto-scroller part is good for kids. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with how hard the game is.
And the funny thing is, even with how good this level looks now, we are actually playing on the lowest possible graphic settings to improve load times and reduce lag in the levels. So this is actually the worst possible that the level can look. If we had our graphic settings cranked up, then it would actually look even more extravagant than it does now.
Yeah.
And just to give you guys an example of how much time resetting can save, that was around 50 seconds slower than my usual time there, and that shows you just how fast a reset is. Obviously, can't do it now, but that's why we do it.
Yeah. Oh, because you didn't reset.
Yeah. So you can explain what just happened there.
Yeah, so normally when you reset, your extras menu starts all the way at the top, but because you didn't reset, the value was still stored from before. And in this level, we turn fast force on and leave EBB off. Part of the reason why we do that is because of these droids. And going back to what I hinted at earlier, is that the droids just have aimbot. So he gets damaged a lot right here. He's actually doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, actually,
that was really good.
Oh my god.
Usually
Yeah,
it'll
that
take
was
one
lucky.
death in that room, so that was really good.
It's going to be a deathless opening.
But yeah, so when you have EBB on, it affects the Dooku fight later in this level. And you can lose a lot of time on it, but man, this is really good.
Yeah, that was
This is really good.
a 0 death opening. That is very rare. The droids were feeling very kind today.
Yeah.
What if not resetting actually helps?
Yeah, you never know. Maybe they get confused. They're like, wait,
AI manipulation.
it's not supposed to happen.
All right.
Really solid opening. That was great.
That's my fastest opening ever, actually. It's pretty funny.
I think part of it is because he didn't have to scroll all the way down to fast force. That definitely helps. But what he's doing here is cycle skips, and it's basically a perfectly timed slam. There's a little bit of leeway. It's not like frame perfect or anything. But if you miss a cycle here, fighting Dooku, you have to wait. And that was a bit unfortunate. So we'll see right here. We don't really know when he's gonna attack again, and sometimes the droids will deflect bullets into Dooku, resetting the cycle. And that only happens if we miss a cycle skip.
Yeah, and the cycle skips are basically skipping that where he shoots the electricity at you. If you time the slam like immediately when he starts it, so a Jedi slam kind of has like a lingering effect. So as long as Dooku is within range of that lingering effect when he starts doing the electricity, he is eligible to be hit, and the lingering effect will kind of go into him while he's shooting the electricity and damage him. And here we're about to see another cool drop in warp if you can get it.
Nice.
Basically,
Did that work? Okay.
Yeah, that worked. All right. So his team, by getting his team off the camera there, they just kind of warp to the end of that room. for some reason, likely because like the elevator is closing in, and I guess they don't want to program the AI. I'm not too sure why they warp to the end, but regardless, by kind of going up that vent, you can get them on the camera and call them in.
There's another drop and warp right
Yeah.
there. Small, but, just optimizing the movement and stuff.
Yeah, we actually used to do this room entirely with R2D2 because you don't like it's possible to beat this room without using any other characters. And when someone said that it was faster to do this room with the Jedi, I didn't believe them. Like I was like, that doesn't make any sense when you can literally just go to the end of the room with R2. But because of drop-in warps, it's actually faster because rather than walking to the end of the room with R2, you can just warp him to the end of the room with running with a faster character.
Yeah. Here's an example of a room where droids are really annoying because we have to pull these two levers, and obviously that was nice. It's faster to do it without killing the droids. And something about this game is that if you're doing any sort of action, like building or forcing objects, if you get attacked during that, your animation will actually stop. So it's important that we can get that force off before the droids actually attack us.
Which is also where Fast Force comes out and helps a little bit.
Right, and that power-up that he picked up at the beginning of the room.
All right, Zach, what strat are you going for on this next level?
We'll do it. We'll do it.
The full strat?
We'll do it.
All right. I don't know what that means, but
We'll do it.
It means we'll do it.
It means we'll do it.
So
Yeah,
this
okay.
is, or you can explain.
Yeah, go
this
ahead.
one,
No,
this one.
okay, I'll explain it. So basically, Grievous, he has 5 or 6 different cycles, and by doing a little strat that we call Grieve Cheese, we just skip all of those cycles.
wow, that's a good start. Oh, I didn't hit that time.
That's one hit.
So basically, he's aggroing Grievous and then jumping out of that center platform, which like is the trigger zone for detecting what phase of the fight Grievous is on. So as long as you're damaging Grievous while you're not on that platform, the fight does not progress at all. And it's kind of basically just like praying that you do hearts to him. As you saw, he did 4 hearts on the very first attempt, and now it's not going as well. There we go. That wasn't
It's
bad.
not actually too bad, yeah.
But
Yeah, so you can obviously do that like a lot faster, but our theory is that it's hardware dependent and perhaps a little bit random. I don't know why, but some people have better luck with it than others. Some people just can't do it at all because I guess the way their hardware is.
So for example, I used to get very, very good luck with this trick. Like I would always get like a bunch of hearts and do really, really well. And I had some monitor issues and I had to get a new cable for my monitor, and now it literally doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
And that's the only difference that I can find because you literally are just standing over there and shooting bullets. But for some reason, for certain people, it's really strange. We don't really know why that's the case. But like, for example, if I switched back to my old cable, it worked fine. New cable didn't. And we don't really know why. And it's kind of one of those like dumb parts of the game and kind of one of the things of running a PC.
Yeah.
A PC video game. There's going to be some weird like hardware technicalities like that, but you know, we move on.
There is an easier version of that boss fight that's not much slower and a lot more consistent, so that's usually what runners opt to do instead of the full strat.
Right.
And you'll notice he turned exploding blaster bolts back on here. It's really helpful in this level just for crowd control. As you can see, you can just wipe out all the enemies right there.
It actually does not matter that he killed Yoda there, since he's just waiting.
I'm just kind of sad that during the Grievous fight, we didn't get an Obi-Wan hello there.
You can imagine that's probably what he said during the cutscene, right?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, when they like wave at each other. That's definitely what happened.
2 unfortunately timed deaths.
Yeah, the clones I would say are a little more accurate than the stormtroopers, but like it's small. It might just be because they're in a giant forest and there's nothing to block the shots. But as you can see, we saved all 3 Wookiees, and they're able to stand on the buttons and allow us to enter the next room. This level is mainly 1P2C. It's pretty much just all execution and you know, some knowledge, just knowing where to go and like how to control both players, because it is pretty precise. As you can see, like I need to have very good control over where my shots are going, that I don't accidentally kill Yoda. That's a very hard thing to avoid, actually.
That's part of the reason why he picked up that power up too.
Yeah.
And he can actually shoot the targets for the bridge right there just from the ground. He doesn't actually have to go all the way up. It's possible without exploding blaster bolts, but it's made much easier with it. So that's another reason why we have it turned on in this level.
Now it's just kind of a matter of running to the end. We're going to get to see a couple more little pixel jumps here, and just some good 1v2c execution. This room is very easy to lose like 10 seconds in if your execution doesn't go very well. So as you can see, Yoda is going to jump on literally nothing there to get up.
And then
As
do it
Yoda
again.
does.
Yeah.
Yoda is incredibly
Yoda
broken
things.
in this game.
Oh yeah.
His hitbox is very weird, allowing him to do some really wacky things with collision, and in free play, most notably clipping through any ceiling.
Yeah, so
The
any
entire
percent's
game.
not the only category in this game, and if you played this game before, you're probably familiar with the free play mode, in which you, like, the point of that mode is to come back and get all the collectibles that you cannot collect during story mode, like certain mini kits that require certain abilities and like the red brick or whatever. And the whole point of free play is that you can press the triggers on your controller to kind of toggle between characters. And the ability to toggle between characters with no cooldown whatsoever and whenever you want allows for a lot of very broken clips. And Yoda is kind of the core of a lot of those clips. Yoda can basically clip through any ceiling in the game in free play. So
Yeah.
the free play speedrun is really just clipping through the ceiling basically in almost every single room.
Definitely worth checking out the free play world record. That is held by E Roadhouse, and other categories. There's all mini kits. There's 100%. 100% is probably the second most popular in terms of viewership, held by Wii Super as well. So definitely worth checking out the other categories in this game. They're all really sick, and that's one of the great things about this game is there's at least 4 or 5 main board categories that like everyone loves. So I think it's really fun because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
lots of
really
variety.
like that. Yeah, that any percent isn't like the only thing that people care about in this game.
And not only is there other categories, but there's other games as well. Like the complete Saga is like generally the most popular and the most actively ran. But there's also a bunch of other Lego games, particularly the older ones are more popular and maybe more competitive. But people definitely run the new ones as well. You know, the Lego Indiana Jones, Lego Harry Potter, Lego Batman. And they all have their own collection of skips and glitches.
Yeah.
I would, someone should explain this.
Yeah, so right here, he's gonna kill all these enemies right here, basically to make sure there's not any aggros when he's doing this skip coming up here. But this is called library skip, and it basically skips the library, as it's in the name. But he's gonna do another example of a drop-in warp, where he'll put Obi-Wan at the top here, and put Yoda at the bottom there, and if he pans the camera up right, this skip is really finicky, and it's hard to get it first try. It's kind of camera dependent, and the camera is really precise. But there we go, got the drop and warp. Second try, not too bad.
That's another one of those skips where the actual line that you take approaching the door is really important, which is why you kind of saw him kind of jumping around in a weird way before he got to the door. And then after he failed the first attempt, he kind of ran off to the right and then back over, which is the current setup for if you fail the first try. You jump onto a certain floor tile on the right and then jump back over in hopes of readjusting the camera to that exact spot that it needs to be for the trick to work.
Right, and the camera is pretty much what controls whether or not the drop-in warp works correctly, because what can happen is sometimes he drop-in warps next to you, sometimes he drop-in warps behind the door also next to you, And so what you're trying to do is pathfind, or like make the AI pathfind to behind the door, because he thinks, I guess, you're behind the door as well. And that's pretty much the crux of dropping warps. And I was able to get it second try there.
Yep, and we're already on to the final level of episode 3, and you may have noticed that this episode's gone by quite fast. Episode 3 is the shortest episode, I believe, still.
Yeah, it is.
Yep. Sub 20 minutes.
As opposed to the original trilogy levels that are up near the 30-minute mark. The prequel levels, especially episode 3, is extra short, and once library skip was discovered, which is a more recent discovery that saved like 40 seconds, it really cemented episode 3 as just being a really, really short episode.
Yeah, and now a much harder episode as well. It used to be kind of considered the easiest one, but then Grieve Cheese and Library Skip, Chancellor Drop-In Warp, a bunch of skips were found in episode 3, and now it's actually one of the more difficult ones.
Yeah. And punishing as well. It's really easy to lose a lot of time to your best segments. But Vader is a pretty straightforward level, especially the beginning. We're just kind of completing the tasks with 1P2C, and then at the end we have the jump section.
Yeah, there's no skips we actually do in this level, but we do kind of do a warp here. If I can get it, we'll see.
Yeah, and there is a cool thing we do at the end, which makes the boss fight a little bit faster.
So this section might look straightforward, but believe me, I have died here many a time. It's a parkour section, and just like it's supposed to be, it's a little tough.
Yeah,
All right,
and
so we're
dying
gonna,
here.
okay, we're gonna jump off this
no.
thing. Yeah, so you see he warps over. Sometimes he can warp directly onto the platform if you do it fast enough.
Yeah,
So not so.
I have no idea how I didn't die there.
So not only does Obi-Wan have the high ground, he has the ability to just like transport and random places, zip right through areas now.
Apparently.
And right there, it was so quick you might have missed it, but we literally just let our CPU kill us there. That's the part of the
Reminder not
game,
to
like
reset.
the big reveal where you and your best friend playing as kids had to fight each other to,
And you're like,
to
"Oh my
figure
God,
out, yeah, to
no
figure
way."
out who the better Lego Star Wars player is. But in this
Right.
case,
And-
we're just gonna let our CPU kill us because we're trying to go fast. We're not trying to have fun.
A good tip is, if you ever find yourself in that situation, it's pretty much impossible to get hit if you're in the air. So just jump.
Yeah, just
Handy tip of the day.
repeatedly do Jedi slams, and you'll beat your friend every single time.
Right. Pretty much impossible to lose. Yeah, so we're gonna head into the last episode here in a second, episode 5.
I really appreciate chat just throwing quotes of just the movie, everything in chat. I've been watching it the whole time.
Believe me,
is-
we all love the movies.
Yeah, that is one of the things I love about this game is just the culture behind Star Wars and Lego Star Wars specifically too. It makes it for a great experience.
But look how great this cutscene is. It's a shame that we miss out on it so much.
Yeah.
Lego Darth Vader is a scary guy.
Heading into episode 5, which is the final episode of the run, episode 5 is like a different beast than any other episode. It holds a notoriety that no other episode has ever had because it is the most RNG heavy. It's one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult, and it's at the very end of the run. So when you're on world record pace, on a really good run, episode 5 is where runs go to die, basically.
I just, in case we don't go back to the cantina, I don't know why, but the person who's running the cantina looks like Poe Dameron. And that's my connection to episode.
Yeah, he does. I don't know what that guy's name is. It's like, what is his name? He has a name in the source file. I think it's Barman. Some of the source code names for the
Yeah, it's Barman. One word.
Barman, yeah. Some of the source code names for the people in the game are really funny. Like a Rebel Trooper is called Rebel Scum. I guess they're Sith sympathizers over there at TT Games.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff that we found looking through the code. Like, they put like random memes and like, I don't think they renamed some of the studs to like poop. Like I don't know why they.
Yeah,
did that,
there's
but
and I think it's Darth Vader, and all of the objects in the third room are just called poop, and I don't know why, but they just are.
so Yeah, I guess they were having a little fun in
Artistic
the
decision,
studio.
I guess. Yeah. Yeah. So the developers behind this game, we love them because they made an amazing speed game. It's also really funny to look at the decisions they made when we have access to the code.
Yeah. We also
This is
have
the longest cutscene in the game, by the way. So
Yeah. We also have a level editor and viewer called Brickbench, which was made by some fellow community members that lets us see all the map files, which has also been really helpful. And that's kind of how we see all those objects that are named poop. And we can see a bunch of random objects that they just left out of bounds. Pretty
yeah,
cool
like
stuff.
the do-back out of bounds on Spaceport for some reason, just
There's
chilling
some
there.
interesting like choice, like for any interactable object. I think this is a technical thing, but for any interactable object in the game, there's like a clone of it that exists outside of like what you can see on the map, so like behind the walls, basically. And who knows why those exist. And another interesting thing is that there are doors out of bounds, which obviously the doors are just what is taking us from room to room. There's a couple of them that are out of bounds as well. And for example, there's one in Thief Palace that when you hit it, the level just instantly ends. Unfortunately, it is too far away for us to hit without using
Just barely.
cheats.
Just barely.
No, not just barely. It's really it's
Yeah,
just
it's super far.
it's in the middle
Can't
of
even
an
get there in
abyss.
free play.
Yeah, it's just in the middle of an abyss in the middle of nowhere. But if you hit it, the level ends right away. So if a way is found to fly infinitely, then we could hit it.
Yeah. And something to note
Yeah.
that he's doing right here that you probably can't really tell if you don't know what's going on. So we bought the extra that we picked up in 3-1, which is Vehicle Smart Bomb. And basically when we hold our special key, it actually just makes a very big explosion that blows up any vehicles within the vicinity. So this really speeds up the Hoth battle arena because he doesn't really have to go around targeting specific vehicles. He can just blow them up simultaneously, or he kind of switches off and on with each player to maximize explosions. And I guess we did kind of gloss over it as well, but in the second room he did do a couple barrier skips to skip blowing up the barriers with bombs.
I guess this is another example of AI manipulation right there. I'm able to manipulate these two AT-ATs into spawning next to each other by positioning myself in a certain spot.
Yeah.
This is a risky play. We'll see if this pays off.
You got one heart. Okay, you got 2 hearts. Now you're good.
2 hearts should be good here. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap both of them at the same time, and they do eventually get up if you, yeah, I feel that would
You're
happen.
slow. If you take too long,
You're slow.
they'll eventually get up. But
There you go.
But yeah, towing them back to back like that just saves time based on routing, as you don't have to go back to either of them again.
And so this is another RNG heavy level, but definitely not so bad compared to some of the other ones. Okay, wow. I got almost everything
That
in
was a good piece.
about a second, so. Yeah, that's the RNG factor you can see right there. Sometimes you just
this is
get
the
down a lot
third
at once.
out of 4 big RNG levels. So we had Jedi Battle and Attack of the Clones. We had Into the Death Star at the end of episode 6. And now this is the third big RNG spot, this arena in Hoth Battle. And of course, the third and fourth big RNG spots are in episode 5. And the fourth one is going to be coming up in 2 levels.
Yeah.
But before that, we do have an actually fun level.
It was really nifty to see how fast you were wrapping around those AT-ATs, though. I
Yeah.
haven't seen that fast in the Star Wars game.
There
Yeah,
is
it's,
actually there's a little bit of a faster strat, which is a little bit hard to do, just because it's kind of inconsistent sometimes. But if you can position yourself correctly, you can actually just backflip over the AT-ATs, and you'll just wrap the entire thing in one go without having to spin all the way around.
It looks crazy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's a hard strat.
definitely not intended, but you can wrap them just by doing a single backflip.
Because all you got to do is just go around them, right? And if you can flip over them, I mean, works the same way as going all the way around, but it is precise.
That's one of the few things that there are a couple people who actually do it, but none of the top runners are doing it right now. I mean, it could be something to incorporate later. It's a little bit risky. because if you
especially because you can die while you're doing it.
yeah, it doesn't save much, but there are a couple strats here and there that we do not go for yet, and that would be one of them.
Yeah, most of the stuff we're adding at this point is 1 or 2 second time saves here and there, because we are at the point where, you know, a 2 second time save is actually pretty big with the level of optimization.
Do you want to talk about the coffee troopers?
Yes, actually. So this is hot chocolate on the left side here, not coffee.
Okay.
But there are
We can agree to disagree.
There are some troopers here, and instead of killing them, he's just going to leave them alive because of a bit of a strange...
Because I'm a pacifist. Yeah.
I mean...
As you've seen throughout this entire run.
You say that as
I say that as I massacre all of the stormtroopers in the next room.
Yeah, he's going to leave these guys alive because there's some strange behavior up here. So this cart, once it reaches the end of the room, a little camera pan is going to play, and normally when it starts, you get teleported to the corner of the room. But if you leave any enemies alive, it doesn't warp you to the corner of the room. I don't know why. Does anyone know?
No, I don't really know why.
No idea.
No one knows why, but leaving enemies alive there allows you to not get warped into the corner of that room.
It's because of the hot chocolate. It's because you're just letting them drink hot chocolate. You know,
let them be
they're on their
peaceful.
break.
They give us some time save.
They're taking their 15
Both
minutes.
ends of
You
the
know,
deal.
Yeah, they were gracious enough to give us some time.
And this is a very subtle but very large skip where you can just pop C-3PO up to this upper portion using the box there. Normally what you have to do is you need to build a cart, build a fan, use the fan to blow C-3PO up into the air and have him land on the back of the cart and then drive the cart over and flick him up to the upper portion. But you can just push the box. And actually, if you want to do something a little bit slower but easier, you can literally just push him up using the front of the cart. You don't need to land him on the back of the cart.
Yeah.
Again, that's very on brand to how Han Solo and 3PO interact.
Yes.
Yes.
For sure. And this is just a cool Hyper 1P2C optimization, just not having to reclimb the hill to hit the buttons again, but he can just hit all 5 in one go with both players.
You can see I grabbed ghost starts on Leia as well, which will be a little bit useful in the next room. Not super useful, but just preventing myself from dying in here is just nice because dying will make the camera kind of weird. And so when I do this skip, Falcon jump, I want the camera to be nice and neat.
There's so many subtle
That's a
skips
gold,
there
by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I believe that jump he did with Han right there actually saves around 50 seconds. Because normally you have to free the tauntauns, that's what they're called. And then you have to blow up the barriers, and then you have to launch a character up on top of the Falcon with a tauntaun. And I think it takes a little bit to free a tauntaun. You have to push some balls.
It takes a while, yeah.
Yeah, and that jump actually is really simple. It's you literally just hold up and hold directly left on your jumps, and then you're on top of the Falcon. So really nice and easy 50 seconds right there.
Yeah. That was a clean echo base.
Yeah, that was good.
I didn't expect to gold anything this run, but there you go.
Nice.
Nice.
All right. This 1P2C is pretty crazy, so I'll let you guys explain it.
Right, so he's gonna kind of separate his ships right here. Basically, the objective of this room is to destroy all 16 turrets on the 4 Star Destroyers. And by spreading out his players, he can maximize, kill potential for the turrets instead of just going around them at the same time.
He's gonna crash into the destroyer here to die in order to get a fresh set of hearts, because ideally you're not entering the next room with 1 heart on each player, and if you are at 1 heart, you can just crash into the ship and get a fresh die and get a fresh set of hearts while you're just kind of waiting for the you just have to wait after you shoot the 16 turrets for a couple seconds, so while you're sitting there, you may as well get a fresh set of hearts.
Right. Yeah.
All right, well,
this section is another kind of boring part of the run, but it's a little intimidating because it's leading up to a very pivotal part in the run. But right here, we just blow up the barriers and just keep moving along forward. And we'll do the exact same thing in this next room. But in the final room, we have the boulder. And the boulder is one of the biggest RNG sections in the run as well. It's very nice that we have infinite torpedoes, because torpedoes love to blank on the boulder. We might see that coming up. But the alternative to getting torpedoes is blowing up all these little rocks you're seeing that we're flying around. Some of them don't even drop torpedoes, so it's really nice that we can just have infinite torpedoes right here, instead of having to backtrack to grab more torpedoes.
And one thing you'll notice that might be interesting is the fact that because I'm on controller and keyboard, my players will be moving kind of differently, right? My keyboard player is sort of jittering because I'm trying to take a diagonal line, whereas the controller player, I'm able to just move in a straight line, as you can see right here.
And if you are on a world record pace run, this is really where the nerves start to kick in, because this is the boulder that we were talking about. There are 6 targets that we need to hit, and the boulder spins in random directions and random speeds. It can randomly change directions whenever it wants. And because of that, a target can just kind of sit on the backside and never come to the front. But
oh my god.
That was a really good boulder. Wow.
really lucky.
Wow.
That was insanely lucky. I can't, obviously it doesn't look too insane, but that could have taken like 45 seconds longer.
Yeah,
So,
that was
wow.
that was good.
All
Usually,
the targets came right to the front.
yeah, usually the first 2 or 3 targets are really fast. It's usually the last couple that like to be really annoying. But yeah, that was
Yeah,
a really
okay.
good Falcon flight.
I have seen people just sit on the boulder for like a minute plus. Just,
Yeah.
they can't do anything. Just not coming to the front. And that's exactly what Justin's talking about. This is where the nerves kick in. You're like, okay,
So
now I have to face the boulder.
This
especially
is,
when you get
like,
a really good boulder.
we haven't even gotten to the biggest part of episode 5 yet, but it's already kind of showing how much of a gauntlet episode 5 is. So you have the RNG in the Hoth Battle Arena, and then you have the RNG of the boulder. So you need to get good RNG on both of those sections. And then once you get past those 2 sections, that's only like the first half of big things we need to get through. We haven't gotten
I
to
wouldn't
Cloud
even
City
call it
Trap
half.
yet.
We still haven't even
Yeah.
played the hardest level in the entire run yet, so which is very
And
poetic
it's-
because it's at the very end.
Exactly. It's not this one, but we'll talk about it more when this level is over. This is home to one of the biggest skips in the run, called Hut Skip. And basically, there is a trigger where the game is looking for you to go into Yoda's hut and talk to him. And if you try to progress in the level, it won't let you because you'll hit that trigger. But we have a nifty way of maneuvering around it.
Yeah, we're just gonna ignore what the devs want us to do. That's what we
Yeah,
do best.
that's a common
Yeah.
theme, I think.
Yeah, the hut skip actually works very similarly to that skip we saw in Endor, where the AI thought we were on top of the bunker and just teleported right to the bunker. We'll see it in the room right after this.
Also, we are just skipping this entire room here. It's skips like these that, as a runner, every time you do it, you don't really think about it, but there is actually quite a bit of stuff we just skipped there. Like a whole little puzzle where you need to open up some bridges to get Luke over. But you could just go to the other side with R2 and just go to the next room. It's something that anyone could do.
And it is actually possible to make it all the way across this lake without touching any of these buttons, but R2's AI will not follow us, so we have to hit all the buttons. But here's the hut skip. So he's gonna jump on top of this rock, and he's gonna call in player 1 and pause immediately with player 2 to drop him out. And what this is gonna do is Luke is gonna actually follow because he was on top of the rock, and we've essentially just skipped the entire training section with Yoda, and we can just make it across the gap like that and blow up
That's
the
another
player.
pixel jump right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, was that a minute and a half time save, something like that?
I think it's
Wow.
around
Pretty crazy.
70,
A little bit less,
75
yeah, a little
seconds.
less than that, but it's still big.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is just let R2 go walk past the transition for you, which is pretty convenient because
You're-
fortunately the pathfinding there is actually not too bad.
Your AI does not trigger cutscenes, only you do. So you basically just trick R2 to just go past it for you, and then once he's past it, then you can call him in and drop out
Yeah.
Luke. So AI Luke goes through the cutscene as well, and then both of you are on the other side.
Yeah, that's kind of the same reason why Spy Fight Skip works as well. We kind of skip past that trigger by force pushing R2 through it. But here is the Dagobah Vader fight. This is a really interesting one, and you'll kind of see a little bit of a tech that Zach's going to use here. And when you're forcing objects during a camera pan, you can actually move your players during it. So once he slashes Vader, if he's forcing an object like right here, you'll actually be able to walk during this cutscene, or not cutscene, camera pan, I guess, saving a few seconds.
And I always like how, even though we didn't do the Jedi training, when we enter this next room, we are now magically a Jedi. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
that was this skip was actually found on live stream by a runner named Senor, and he was very concerned that we wouldn't get the Jedi version of Luke, but you do. It doesn't matter at all.
A lot of things seem to just work out in this game correctly. It's very nice.
Yeah.
Must admit.
As games, as speedruns do.
Yes, exactly. Here's R2. He just shows up magically.
As R2 does.
Exactly. Everything comes together, and then we just end off Dagobah. Okay, I just golded again.
Oh man.
That's kind of weird.
What was your Falcon flight?
32. So yeah,
Pretty
good
good
start to
episode
episode
five,
5
yeah.
if I had not lost a minute in Hoth battle from resetting, or not resetting, but
However,
yeah.
it
It is only beginning.
this next level, so we have 2 levels left, and the next level is Cloud City Trap, and this is, at this point, the most notorious level in this entire game in any category. It is the most difficult level in the entire run, and poetically, it's right at the end of the run.
Yeah, everything is going to move very fast here, so we'll try and kind of explain it as it goes, but there is basically a way to skip every room, and every room has some form of a Vader boss fight, and we can skip all of them.
Yeah, and they're all just conveniently like the hardest tricks in the game for some reason. So, all in this level. And it was already really hard, and then recently this year, one of the community members found an even harder skip that saves another minute, and so I will be going for that one as well.
Yeah, a way to skip the second Vader fight, which was the last one we needed to skip.
Luckily, the level starts off pretty nice. This first room is, just some simple 1P2C, just kind of, running along. Gonna build this panel here.
Yeah, and he drops out there so that R2 will actually move during the camera pan. Kind of a small thing.
All right, Justin, what are we thinking?
Oh, you almost got it there. Sometimes the troopers will actually shoot you, and the bullet will just deflect right into that barrier.
Should we play it safe or play it risky? There's 2 strats here. There's the safe strat, which is like 15 seconds slower.
I'll do it once.
Or the
I'll do
risky
it once.
strat.
Yeah,
Which,
go for it once.
all right.
This is maybe the second hardest trick in the game.
And
it's really difficult.
This is called DV1 room, short for Darth Vader 1, and this is DV1 jump, where you literally just jump across this gap.
Oh,
You're
so
gonna get that one.
close.
Very close. Yeah, there's a 2-frame window on that one.
Yeah, but so
Oh, wow.
after you do your first jump, like I was saying back at the start of the run, there's a you can wait a maximum of 0.6 seconds between your first and second jump.
You gotta slash him.
Oh, yeah, I do. Looks like the AI's got it for me, though. Managed to hold down the fort.
Yeah.
So this is
there-
panel play.
This is the alternate strat.
Nice.
So you have a 0.6 second window that you can do the second jump, and you have to do your second jump within the last 2 frames. So, like the 0.587 and the 0.600 window, it's kind of complicated, but either way, it's a 2-frame window to do that second jump to make it across that gap, and it's a very punishing skip because you need the helmet. So if you miss it, you need to run back and get a new helmet in order to attempt it again, which is why people usually opt not to go for it.
Yeah, this is another well-spaced jump. It's a little bit easier than the other ones, but it can still be difficult sometimes.
Yeah, the camera can make it a little awkward.
Yeah.
All right,
But
here's the
this
hardest
is-
trick in the game.
This is the second Darth Vader skip. So what he's gonna do is he's gonna wedge Luke in between the elevator and this panel, and he's kind of pause buffering here to get a good positioning. Nice, first try, wow.
Okay.
As long as you get the movement.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, and
Oh,
I'm already
perfect height. That was a near
Wow.
perfect
Wow.
second Darth Vader skip.
Yeah, so that is the hardest trick in the run.
And
And,
here's the third one. That's first
Oh my
try.
god.
So I believe
Okay, well.
that one's a 3-frame window, right?
Yeah. So you get a little bit more leeway. Oh.
Okay.
No.
That one's just a swag strat.
That, yeah, I had to go
Not
for it.
typically done.
But yeah, so the second Darth Vader skip works by wedging Luke in the perfect spot and then pushing him through the wall with R2. And then you can hit the transition to the next room. And then the third boss fight skip is just jumping across the gap. He made it look a lot
And,
easier
yeah.
than it is,
Yeah.
but
It's not easy.
there have definitely been people who have lost minutes to that jump. That
To
Jack
really
skipped.
highlight that
Yeah.
DV2 skip and the difficulty of it, last summer, right about a month after the skip was discovered, we held a break the record style event for this game with 4 of the top runners, in which we all were running TCS any percent for 3 days, just doing attempts all at the same time in hopes that one of us could set a new world record. And
13 hours a day.
yeah, for 13 hours
Jeez.
a day, for 3 days straight. And unfortunately, there was not a new world record. However, DV2 skip set itself in stone as that one skip that really was the devil of TCS runs. I believe there was over 8.
It was 8. No,
I
no,
think
it was
I think it was 8 or 9 world record pace runs. That
Okay,
died
yeah.
To DV2
8 to 9.
in just 3 days.
In 3 days, 8 to 9 world record pace runs. This is the second to last level in the run, and there were 8 to 9 runs somewhere around there that made it to that skip on pace for world record that died to it.
Yeah, and that is
Wow.
what is so hard about this category.
And that was just in that one weekend. Since then, there's even been
Since
more.
then, it's got to be like 50 something.
It really makes it a difficult mental game too, because when you get on a good run, all you're thinking about is
Is
skip
how am I
right
gonna hit
there.
this? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have 2 people in the booth right now that have killed world record pace runs
Yes,
to
I
it.
think me and Justin's PVs
3 actually.
were
Yeah,
both world record pace, and then we lost a ton of time to DV2.
Yeah, my current PB loses 1.5 minutes to my gold split on Cloud City Trap, and
I think Evans is around the same.
Yeah. But coming up on the very last level of the run, Betrayal over Bespin, this level is also very complicated. But we're just going to start out with a 1P2C. This one just kind of propels Lando a little bit farther than he normally would get, just with one player. And the benefit to having both players in right here is that we can actually get 2 shots off on Boba if you hit him on the same frame. But let's see if
Okay, well that's,
that was a
not
weird,
what I intended to happen.
that was a
but-
weird cycle, but
Yeah, so he just randomly goes to any part of the room. There's like 4 or 5 options, and so sometimes he's right in front of you. You just gotta punch him.
yeah. And coming up right here, we have Door Clip, which is a 2-minute time save right at the end of the run. And basically, if he times his jumps perfectly, he can use this door to get pushed out of bounds. And this skips a ton of things. This skips a long cutscene of Boba taking Han and Carbonite away. This also skips freeing and building 3PO in the room directly to the right before that door, which takes a ton of time as you have to go all the way over there after triggering the Boba cutscene. So it's a massive time save. Yeah, now we're on the home stretch.
Yeah, this is where it starts to get real. You know, you've got pretty much just execution here. I like to do this section with one player. Some people do it with both.
there's basically one skip left in the run, and it's a pretty easy skip. You know, it's very, very rare for people on pace for their first ever world record to fail it. It's something Zach would never do.
Well, maybe once. Yeah, so, you know, right at the end, okay, I don't know where ours is, there it is. Right at the end of the run, you have box clip. That's the last skip, and it's not super difficult, but if you miss it, it can lose a lot of time. And the funny thing about what Justin was saying is, yeah, right on my first world record pace run, I finally made it out of Cloud City Trap, obviously the hardest level in the game, on world record pace. I don't know what that was. I just did not press A. And I was like, all right, this is it. All I got left is box clip. And then, you know, it's not over till it's over.
Yeah, that is what they say.
This game is extremely difficult and extremely punishing, but that's also what makes it so
There
exciting.
is. And we have a very consistent setup for that, which is why it was such a shock when Zach missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he redeemed himself though. He redeemed himself.
I did redeem myself.
But this is what we like to call the victory walk.
Oh, you
because-
got the sprinkler.
I got the sprinkler.
The ultra
Yeah, so
rare.
this is like a rare glitch that happens where there's just like a weird sprinkler animation in the middle of the hallway, and
Of
no one has
course.
any idea why that happens.
Of course, it happens in the mirror. Like that's actually really
That's
rare.
actually
It literally
crazy. Yeah, that's
happens
really
like 1 in
rare.
50 runs. I don't know. It does nothing, but it's just like a little firework for you to celebrate or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably, you know, I mean,
Yeah, they're celebrating the marathon. They're like, you did
yeah.
it. You finished the run.
Yeah.
And it should still be here. There we go. Hello.
Nice. Yeah, but the run finishes off with the M platform, where we basically have to kill all the stormtroopers and enter the Falcon. And timing ends
It's a
right when
pretty
he ends
hype
the
ending to the
Falcon.
run. You know, you ended off just with some 1P2C execution, and you know, it's actually a very challenging room.
Yeah,
this
especially
end
when your
platform.
heart's beating at 1,000,000 miles an hour and you're really
Yeah.
focusing and like your fingers are slipping off the keys and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
Yeah, and we'll get the timer ready here.
Could be over in on this guy, so then we're gonna walk in, and it'll be over when I touch this door. 3, 2, 1, done. Obviously, a little bit of time loss from the not being able to reset. I think that was like 2.5 minutes or something.
Yeah, we
But
had
yeah,
some technical
there it is.
difficulties, but we powered through. We still got a good showcase.
Yeah.
Very fun run.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super fun. I always
Yeah,
recommend
GG.
people to pick this game up. It has a very special place in my heart. This is maybe my favorite game of all time. It's just incredible, and it's such a good speed game. The nostalgia, I think, is a huge factor for a lot of people, which I think is nice. Because playing a game that's nostalgic to you can make it just fun to look back at and see, oh, how can I break this level I used to be really bad at as a kid? And that's why it can be so fun. But again, we always like to call this a hidden gem of a speed game. And we really hope that you guys found it as fun and interesting as we did, because, you know, when I first got into it, I know that I was intrigued, and I was like, my friend was like, let's just play Lego Star Wars. And I was like, you know what? Sure, why not? I mean, what's the worst that could happen? And then I found a great community, a great speed game, and a very, very valuable way to spend my time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
If anyone was in chat and was like, man, I want to play it. I want to learn this run. This one looks super, super fun. Where would they go to get more information? I know it was discussed earlier, but maybe there were people who came in near the end who were like, man, yeah, Star Wars, complete saga. I want to know more about this.
All right, so here I will cover this. So there's a couple options that you have if you want to learn more about the speedrun. So if you want to be able to communicate with other runners and discuss strats and everything, I highly recommend joining the Discord, which if you go to the speedrun.com page for LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga, you will be able to find a little Discord icon on the page that you can click on and join the Discord. I will also see if maybe we can get the link in the chat. And in addition to that, if you go to the guides section of speedrun.com, we have all sorts of resources there, including an any % tutorial, as well as various resources for the other categories. We have a documentation of all the best golds anyone's ever gotten in the game, which is a great resource to see what like an optimized split would look like. We have different mods for the game that can help you practice, such as Brickbench in a speedrun mod. And so that's basically everything we have for that sense. So
Yeah, and make sure, I would say, if you're going to do anything, join the Discord. It's got access to a tutorial that you will probably need to start running the game. And it's the hub for all our resources, pretty much everything in regards to the game. So definitely join that. Thank you guys so much for commentating with me. This is an extremely fun run. This is always a dream of mine to do a run for GDQ. I've always found GDQ an amazing event, and I've always, dreamt of being able to perform on the big stage, if you will. So I'm very happy with this, and thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any other words, go ahead.
I definitely really enjoyed being able to commentate this. Like Zach said, this is a really special run to me and Zach and a lot of other people. We put a ton of time into this, and hopefully in the future we can maybe see some of the other Lego games in this event. Like I said, this is not the only Lego game. There's many other Lego games that have really cool skips and glitches as well, and it would be really cool to see a lot of these be showcased, because there are a lot of cool glitches that are just waiting to be showcased.
Yeah, and just want to say thank you to the GDQ guys and Midnight Vesper for reaching out to us to let us come on the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finally, if anyone was interested in following any one of y'all, where would they go?
You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/eroadhouse. That's probably a good platform. Also, my Twitter is eroadhouse with 2 E's at the end.
Yes, you can find me at twitch.tv/slgbmusic, twitter.com/slgbmusic as well. And Justin, you can go ahead with your links.
I'm at twitch.tv/wesuper, and my Twitter is xwesuper.
All right, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Everyone who watched, and Midnight Vesper for reaching out.
Any final thoughts? Any final things y'all would like to say?
I think that's it.
Play this game. It's sick.
All right, well, for those in chat, don't forget that these Hotfix shows are brought to you from viewers like you. If you'd like to have ad-free viewing, please consider using your Prime Gaming account to support the weekly GDQ Hotfix content. If you'd like to support the channel in other ways, you can subscribe, or you can share everything that happens all over social media. And don't forget, if you missed this show or any other GDQ Hotfix shows, you can check out an archive of our past runs and shows at youtube.com/GamestoneQuick. Tomorrow, we have The First Step featuring Resident Evil 2 Remake, with Keys and Hobbs basically taking that game from something and seeing what they do with it, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's really fun. The First Step is such a fun concept, because they love to they basically play the game once and then do the speed run. So it's really fun to see that evolution happen. But we, today, are not done. While the bargain bin closes its doors, don't forget, Speedruns from the Crypt with Ecdysis is coming up here at the top of the hour. So this is a great opportunity to get up, get some food, use the restroom, hydrate, and get ready for some spoopy games with Speedruns from the Crypt. Thank you all so very much, and we'll see you all later.
Peace.